Greetings, Radioland. Last time, on the adventures of Ross Douthat, boy detective, we left our intrepid hero and his sidekick Jamie on the yacht of old sea captain Bill Buckley, searching for the lost virtue gemstones.
Golly, Mr. Buckley, you really saying that by taking our clothes off, we're gonna be able to skin dive down and find the virtue stones that'll bring bourgeois values of thrift and diligence back to the white middle class?
Why, that's exactly it, my dear boy Ross. In fact, the taxonomy between heterosexuality and homosexuality in the classical context is simply blurred. So why don't you slip those pants off?
Oh, geez, Mr. Buckley, it feels a little funny, but if it'll help make America virtuous again, by gum, I'll do it.
That's the spirit.
Will boy detective Ross Douthat find the virtue stones? Will he disrobe in front of ancient sex vampire and sea captain Bill Buckley?
Yes.
Tune in next week, Radio Explorers, for the adventures of Ross Douthat, boy detective.
And a man just known only as Ross Douthat, or as I call him, Boss Douthat. Boss.
Awesome.
Freeway Ross Douthat. No, but everything that Sean Hannity is, Ross Douthat is not. Sean Hannity is at Fox News. And
Sean Hannity is the guy who he was putting in the toilet.
No,
He's
Ross,
the dude getting the swirly.
That's absolutely correct.
Like Sean Hannity plays to an audience of, as we've just discussed, desperate spinsters and the bewildered elderly at 10 o'clock on Fox News. Ross Douthat is, ensconced within the op-ed page of the New York Times.
He's the thinking man's conservative.
And he, let's be honest, he plays to an audience of people who read the New York Times, right? Like, there's not a big crossover in the Sean Hannity, Ross Douthat demographic. But like Sean, Ross has been a fascinating figure to me for a long time. And I want to do something now. I want to do sort of the Ross Douthat reading series because, like I said, Ross is an interesting character, and not a lot of people know who Ross Douthat is because they see his columns and they see him on Twitter and stuff. But a lot of people don't know sort of like how he started out in this game. And
they do wonder though when they see his picture. They think, when is he going to finish growing that goatee?
Yeah, I guess it's because like Ross is almost my age that he kind of disgusts me more than some of these other people.
He is the youngest. He is the youngest Times columnist. I don't know if it's the youngest columnist ever, but he's
got to be
way. Yeah, I think he might be the youngest columnist they ever hired.
I mean, Ross is he's 4 years older than me. So like it's conceivable. He's 30. Yeah, he's 36 right now. But he's.
By the way, I just want to interject. You can say his name however you want, but I do love that you say it Douthat, like it's like truth out. But I think it's just in case we want to stick to it.
Is it Douthat?
I think it's Douthat. Yes.
Yeah, I always thought it was Douthat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
It's like, bitch, you ever gonna actually generate some testosterone? I fucking doubt that.
Well, I have to give proper respect. Douthat, is that it?
Douthat.
Yeah.
Douthat.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna have to. I believe that you should always spell and pronounce a person's name the way they prefer, right before you kick a fucking divot out of their skull, which is what I'm about to do right now. Okay. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to read from an excerpt from Ross's book called. This is his book called Privilege: Harvard and the Education of the Ruling Class, published by Hyperion in 2005. And this was when he was a young up-and-comer. He wrote this book that was obviously a sort of his take on William F. Buckley's famous book, God and Man at Yale. And this was excerpted in The Atlantic under the title, We're on Our Way Home Now, Ducky, Sailing, Swimming, and Sipping Nightcaps with William F. Buckley Jr. So this is an excerpt.
I never thought this would happen to me.
This is an excerpt from Ross Douthat's book. Again, this was published. I've known about this for a while, and I have to say it's actually one of my favorite things ever written because I think it is genuinely one of the funniest things ever put to paper.
We definitely need to do a trigger warning, basically for everything. Just if you have any kind of squeamishness, if you have ever been triggered by anything in your life, do not listen.
Hit pause now.
We have all of the hits, I think, in this show, but this and one other passage from Privilege are probably only rivaled in conservative erotica by Bill O'Reilly's excruciating sex scene in his novel, Those Who Trespass. And I think this has the advantage of being real.
Yeah. The funny thing is that this is not thinly veiled fiction. This is just memoir.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the Ross Douthat reading series. But before I start, I need to do a preface. This is a preface to the William F. Buckley story that Ross relates, but this is from the same book. I'm just going to read a scene that Ross relates here, and I want my co-hosts and everyone listening to the show to put yourself in the mind of a young Ross Douthat. You imagine that you are a 19-year-old lad full of vim and vinegar, home from college. So I'm going to start reading now. One successful foray ended on the guest bed of a high school friend's parents, with a girl who resembled a chunkier Reese Witherspoon drunkenly masticating my neck and cheeks. It had taken some time to reach this point. Quote, "Do most Harvard guys take so long to get what they want?" she had asked, pushing her tongue into my mouth. I wasn't sure what to say, but then I wasn't sure what this is what I wanted. My throat was dry from too much vodka, and her breasts, spilling out of pink pajamas, threatened my ability to. I was supposed to.
Hold on a minute. What did that mean?
I don't know. I'm going on.
His ability to what?
I'm going on. I was supposed to be excited, but I was bored and somewhat disgusted with myself, with her, with the whole business. And then whatever residual enthusiasm I felt for the venture dissipated with shocking speed as she nibbled my ear and whispered, "You know, I'm on the pill." So again, imagine that you are a 19-year-old. Imagine yourself at 19. You're alone at a friend's house. Their parents are away. You're in your friend's parents' bedroom with a girl who, quote, resembles a chunkier Reese Witherspoon. Now, a lot of people have gotten Ross a lot of stick for this because he's basically calling this girl fat for trying to have sex with him. But in my opinion, a chunkier Reese Witherspoon is like a better Reese Witherspoon.
Sure. Bear in mind that while you're doing that with the chunkier Reese Witherspoon, you look like a shriveled, bloated sack of just failed manhood.
You look like there's like Paul Giamatti with a neck beard.
Ross Douthat looks like the dad from Too Many Cooks if he was played by a thumb. I just gotta say that shows that like real, authentic street soldiers like him thick. And Ross,
yeah, I like a juicy bitch. Everyone here at Chapo likes. If they're not thick, then if the spoon doesn't stand up in the oatmeal, then
yeah,
I'm saying goodbye.
Ross Douthat has never gotten all up in them guts. Like you can talk about God and the Man at Yale or privilege at Harvard all you want. But if, like, you ain't never had her bend over and she begging for more dick and you give her that look, like, I'm sorry.
I just want to ill-advisedly interrupt by saying that that is the quote that gets around. But Will, you've left out the line that follows that last.
Oh, I have.
Yeah, because no. This I take it you've got that from the internet because it's all over the internet. But I looked up the actual book. And there's one more line that I think is perfect, which is as follows. So she goes, "You know, I'm on the pill," and then it completes. On that night, in that dank basement bedroom, she spoke for all of us, the whole young American elite. Not "I love you," not "this is incredible," not "let's go all the way," but "I am on the pill." So
my God,
he's just giving you a little. So a little flourish there.
This is
A motherfucker would need a stepladder to get up in them guts.
this is my preface to the real goods of this story here. But just again, imagine you're 19, a thick, a juicy Reese Witherspoon whispers basically demands that you fuck her, and what do you do? Well, obviously, you just basically throw up a little in your mouth.
What you do is you say, "I'm sorry, madam, but this endeavor has grown quite unappealing." And I say, "Good day, madam." And then you grab your walking stick and your valise, and you wrap your scarf around your neck, and you bid good day.
Or if you're feeling froggy, you like put on this Francisco Franco mask, please.
Okay, so that's the.
I love it when you call me Big Augusto.
Okay, so that's the preface. That's the chunky Reese Witherspoon anecdote, which I think colors a lot of what is to come. Okay, so I'm starting now. This is from the excerpt about meeting William F. Buckley as a young man. The setup here is that him and fellow college conservative, who was his fellow intern at the National Review, on their first day on the job, get invited over to a special dinner at William F. Buckley's house. William F. Buckley, founder of the National Review, sort of godfather of the modern conservative movement. They're chosen to go see the great man at his house on the Upper East Side. So I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm going to read one paragraph here. The current editors, his chosen heirs, dined with him every second Monday, and as a special treat, I was asked to dinner on my first day. I had only just met Jamie, but we sealed our friendship that night, gawking together at Buckley's fantastic uptown lair, the gimlet-eyed butler, the cooks and maids murmuring in Spanish, the dinner
Fuck
table,
you with the gimlet-eyed. Fuck you.
The dinner table with glasses of cigarettes by each place setting, the luxurious sitting room with its lush tapestries and lacquered tables. So he's captured a lot of detail about what his apartment looks like and the sort of finishings and furnishings.
The eyes were gimlet as fuck.
But it goes on. We gawked too at Buckley himself, who swept down to greet us, his eyes bright and curious, his wit languid but mischievous, and his flesh slacking a bit.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, God. The flesh is slacking.
The flesh slacking a bit with age, but still held together by a lurking energy, a sense of coiled potency.
Oh, God. The male essence, as it were.
Okay, this is the first annotation. We said last time that you have to Google image search the people we're talking about. He's talking about William F. Buckley circa 2005.
He looked like a fucking melting. He looked like
Buckley always, as a young man, looked like some kind of fucking Gila monster.
He looked like the squirrel from the Ice Age movies with the giant bug eyes.
This is how Ross is. Google image search William F. Buckley like right before he died, and he looks like the fucking Walking Dead. Like, I mean, it's like
the Crypt Keeper but racist.
Yes. The night, and this is or as Ross calls it, lurking potency.
Lurking potency. I believe that was the most horrifying of Lovecraft's short stories.
Yeah,
lurking potency.
That's a great Twitter handle.
So
yes, lurking potency.
So Ross and his new friend Jamie, they have dinner at Buckley's house, but wouldn't you know it, they're invited out to his estate in Connecticut to go sailing this Friday. They're okay. Jamie and I rode the train along to the Connecticut coast, where Buckley picked us up wearing a jaunty cap and driving a Land Cruiser. We'll stop off at my house first, he told us as we pulled away from the station. We were spirited off to his summertime cottage, which waited at the end of a long gravel drive. Blah blah blah. Newly mown lawn, trees. Inside, we were introduced to Buckley's boat boy, Ben.
Oh, Ben. Please, Ben, blink twice if you're being held against your will.
Ben, a bearded Yale student hired for the summer to help out on the sailboat. Drinks with Pat followed in a sea-facing room with deep armchairs and a huge tiger skin rug dominating the floor. While we chatted, a small dog leapt into her lap. He's new, she declared as the dog, an adorable King Charles Spaniel, nuzzled at her long fingers. His name is Sebastian, but we call him Sebi. There was general agreement on Sebi's excellence. It's like
This is like how people in PG Wodehouse stories.
Yeah,
talk.
this is exactly what I mean. This is like, to me, this whole episode is like a really, really great episode of like a really funny British comedy series.
Yeah.
Like when he said we were marked on Sebi, like general agreement on Sebi's excellence, I flashbacked. I wish that Hezbollah burst into the room, fucking everybody, and re-educated the dog.
Okay, it gets better. The boat boy awaited us on Buckley's vessel Petito, the first large sailboat I had been on. This is a night of many new experiences for
Wow.
me.
Yeah.
It's like a Katy Perry song.
Fireworks.
Yeah.
No, he said. He, a nod to Buckley, takes out an ad in the Yale Daily News every spring for someone to crew his boat for the summer, and I answered it. That was his first mistake. He didn't know quite as much about sailing as I'd like, Buckley confided to us a moment later, as the first mate scrambled below to fix a rope. But he does what he's told well enough, and he has other duties. Speaking of which, he raised his voice. How about those hors d'oeuvres, Ben? Okay, so
how fucking thick and how legally rigorous was the non-disclosure agreement that he had to sign before he took that job?
I feel like you don't even like. William F. Buckley could have fucked Ben the boat boy in the ass in front of Douthat. He'd be like, "Oh, they were reenacting the classics." Like, missing this fucking thick-skulled goatee motherfucker.
So basically, they actually get out on a boat with him. There's no escape at this point. So as Charlie says on It's Sunny in Philadelphia, the implication is already there.
The implication is. Yeah.
So basically, Buckley gets insanely drunk and pretends to be interested in a conversation that Ross and his friend Jamie are having. Buckley seemed to be paying close attention, cocking his head to one side as we went back and forth. I mean, again, just probably bored, fucking stupid, listening to these two assholes try to impress
Also, that's
him.
a great verb. That's a great verb. Let's go with that word.
Yeah. Well, I said that Goku would be on the side of Neo. That's a good point about Goku, young lad.
Buckley tells him to put a sweater on. Buckley drank the most, but if it affected him, I never noticed. We talked about the Red Sox, baseball, and Ayn Rand, with Jamie asking Buckley if he had been there on the night that Ludwig von Mises famously reduced her to tears by calling her a little Jew girl.
Ah, yes. I'll never forget an anti-Semitic moment. I keep a small journal of every instance where a Jew is brought low, as they deserve.
Okay, here's where it gets really good. After dessert had been set aside and Ben had gone to clean up, Buckley gathered himself up from his seat and peered down at us. I generally take a swim after eating, he said. You're all welcome to swim, of course, as well. Now that he mentioned it, a swim seemed like just the thing. I imagine practically anything would have sounded just like the thing at that point in the evening. Ross has had a little too much to drink.
Yeah,
I put a Molly in her brandy, and he ain't even know it.
But then I considered the matter more deeply and heaved a deep and regretful sigh. I'd swim, sir, I said. I would swim. I really would like to, but I'm afraid I didn't bring a bathing suit. Well, neither did I. After all, it's quite dark out there, and we're all men here, you see. And then when he was gone, Jamie and I sat for a moment in silence, the dinner settling in our stomach, and the wine rising to our eyes.
Oh my God!
You aren't actually going to go swimming, are you? He asked me. Aren't you? I demanded. Well, what? I don't really like to swim very much in general. Well, Jamie, I said grandly, neither do I, honestly. But you know, I think there comes a time in a man's life when he has the chance to say to his grandchildren, I once went skinny dipping with William F. Buckley, and this, Jamie, is that chance. I'm not making this up. I didn't write that, by the way. I didn't write this. This was published in a book under Ross Douthat's name.
If I told like my younger cousins that I went skinny dipping with William F. Buckley III, they would know what the fuck I'm talking about. It's like not a cool story. Unless you get to the point where you fuck Ben the Boat Boy's dick.
It goes on. Ben the Boat Boy tells him about his usual company. Ben says he has guests on the boat almost every weekend. Usually it's old friends from Skull and Bones, ex-ambassadors, people like that. I've heard sometimes you get European nobility, deposed Romanovs, and that kind of stuff. So Buckley is going out on this boat basically every weekend and just like getting his dick off with like various.
The week before he died, Anastasio Somoza was up there, and they fucking rubbed dicks together in the Long Island Sound.
They spaceported with each other right off Oyster Bay.
Habsburg jaw actually refers to when the last of the Austrian Habsburgs unhinged his jaw. And William F. Buckley just fucking smacked his uvula.
Oh, God. I mean, I don't need to read anymore. It goes on. Buckley tries to give them more brandy and shit. But, like, I'm just Ross really let him down, right? Because he probably
this is what do they call it in the world of childhood sexual abuse?
He's a chicken hawk.
There's the term like training or grooming. That's it. He is grooming them, obviously. And you could and they might not have worked out, but you could tell that Ross was further along than Jamie. If Buckley had like zeroed in on one of them for future grooming, it would have been Ross.
What have we learned about William F. Buckley? More of a real, authentic street soldier than Ross, because he likes his bitches thick. Get me a thick one.
Oh yes, there's nothing quite so crumulent as a thick bitch in one's face.
Give me that Harvard boy, have him bent over and looks back at me. What?
I'm tired of these Yaleys. Invite that young Harvard lad over to dinner, and then we'll get him on the boat.
So to stay briefly with young Ross,
boss.
Boss Ross. I also found a 2001 profile in the Harvard Crimson, because Ross actually, before landing at the National Review in the Atlantic and then landing at the New York Times in 2009 and going on to predict that Marco Rubio would win literally every single Republican primary in 2016, he was at the Crimson at Harvard, but also the right-wing campus paper, The Salient. So he was quite prolific.
Wait, I'm sorry. The right-wing paper at Harvard was called The Salient?
The Salient, yes.
Oh.
But he had a column at the Crimson, and in his senior year they did a profile of
the Crimson is like the official Harvard newspaper, right?
That's exactly right. So it has this is kind of the Rosetta Stone of Douthatology, and it has a lead that in my
you mean the one I just read isn't?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't want to start judging these things. It's a very important chapter.
It's part of the canon. It's part of the Douthat canon.
It's canon. So it has a lead though that completely obliterates his image as a stoic, philosophical conservative in the mold of, say, Michael Oakeshott or maybe even Buckley himself. And here it is. This is the lead. When Ross G. Douthat tells you that he hopes to become one of the world's most prominent writers, you get the sense that he just might. Quote of Ross: "Coming to Harvard, I now have a new sense of the power and success that is at our fingertips. I know I will be one of the 25 richest writers of the future," he says. Douthat has always stood apart from the crowd. As a sole Republican in a, quote, staunch hardline Democrat family, he formed his conservative worldview from an early age as a way of, quote, rebelling against my parents. So just kind of immediately, you do get the sense that Ross, like many a conservative pundit, their politics are sort of just fighting the battles of like college or earlier, when like they wanted to differentiate themselves socially or they were mad at the libs at say Skidmore, like Will and I went to, for just making them feel unwelcome. So they just decided for the rest of their career, I will be a Catholic reactionary. And that seems to be Ross's
correct me if
line.
I'm wrong. Before he was a Catholic reactionary, his first conversion experience was to Pentecostalism.
He grew up in what he describes as a semi-charming New Haven Pentecostal household.
Okay.
According to New York Magazine, his parents would sometimes speak in tongues, but eventually those tongues met the sweet, cleansing taste of a communion wafer. And
he switched.
So there is a chance that Ross that it's all put on with him, and if so, I gotta say that the Buckley anecdote is one of the funniest things I've ever read. I mean, it's like better than Whitnell and I, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I mean, like that kind of like dry British humor.
So here's the test, really, because the last thing there's two more things, but the second last thing I'll chip in here is I looked through some of his Harvard Crimson columns back from the early millennium, and he used to be a lot more right wing. In college, he was basically, in fact, that profile called him move over Limbaugh. So he was much more in the mold of Limbaugh or Hannity, you could say, with some more intellectual underpinnings. But like he clearly, to use the word groomed again, he clearly groomed himself into more of a David Brooks type after he left Harvard. So here's a quote from one of his columns in which he compares watching porn, which the whole column is just bemoaning the fact that porn is widely available on the internet,
and he compares he's watching it.
Well, it's comparing watching porn to being a neo-Nazi mass murderer. And here's the quote: "Everyone talks about how the boys in Columbine learned to make bombs on the internet and whiled away their unhappy hours on neo-Nazi websites. Nobody talks about the fact that the web's most profitable sites are not Yahoo, Amazon, or Priceline, but sites that peddle what in more innocent times used to be called dirty pictures." So just kind of
innocent times. Like, how old are you? What, you don't remember any of that?
Oh, well, you could go down to the Nickelodeon and see a woman's ankle.
Back when
That fucker brought. He went to class with a walking stick. I will bet money that was happening.
I was in my grave thinking that shit. He harkens back to a more innocent time when you had to take your sailboats out in international waters for a gay experience.
All these websites with their crude images of naked women. Where's a shot of an 80-year-old reactionary spreading his butt cheeks in the Long Island Sound?
Wait, finish the quote about pornography, though.
Well, I mean, that's the only.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah. It was just dirty
like,
pictures.
there's like everyone talks about the Columbine kids playing like Doom 2, but like they aren't talking about them trading like grainy, pixelated like topless shots in AOL chat rooms.
Right. So it was generally just kind of, he was making the comparison, I guess, to just bring more of the heat onto pornography. But then there was one other. A truly bizarre column that I guess was attacking the idea that stereotypes are bad. And it appears to suggest that Asian people give Ross Douthat nightmares.
I just want to say I also agree. I don't think stereotypes are bad. They save me a lot of time thinking.
That's classic. So it's clearly written with some type of, like tongue-in-cheek. He's trying to make certain people at Harvard uncomfortable, maybe. And
I find that a lot of these guys, they really try to be like H.L. Mencken, but it never works.
No.
Yeah.
And in this, he's basically he's sort of trying to dance around the corners of being politically correct by zooming in on one group. He says he could choose to embarrass Harvard Asians. So he writes, "If I really wanted to offend Harvard Asians, I might sit down and write an article in which I was, a tad critical of the Asian community. For instance, I might suggest that there was, let's say, a slight trend toward ethnic self-segregation, or a slight proclivity for the sciences over the humanities among Asian Americans. And I might, if I were so inclined, not that anyone would be, get downright nasty and suggest that a large chunk of these self-segregated math and science types are self-absorbed, clannish, and downright weird." So I just have to point out
these celestials are such an inscrutable.
The heathen Chinese does not understand.
That is
What humans,
absolutely
Americans.
like something that Steve the Drunk would say in Deadwood. Like you could hear it. You could hear him saying like, "Oh, these clannish and downright weird." So like,
Yes,
When was the last time you saw a white man eating together at the dining hall?
excuse me, but did you not notice in that he said he could write that?
that's right.
He wasn't writing it.
Good thing
Yes.
he did it.
Could write it.
It's a great thing he didn't.
Good thing
Yeah.
he did it,
And so finally, the last thing I have to contribute on Boss Ross is that of all the people that you can imagine in the bubble that is the punditocracy, to be Douthat's best friend, and not only best friend but best man, I was not expecting that person to be Michael Barbaro of the New York Times, but that is in fact his soulmate.
Now you said that Michael Barbaro of quote, "This situation has become dangerous and unacceptable" fame.
As I like to call him, NPR Wolverine.
Michael Barbaro is he's like the Robert Fisk of subways. Like he's seen all the most dangerous shit. He's seen the big handbags, the homeless people.
One time, the dancing kids who breakdance on the subway, one of them almost kicked him in the head.
Yeah, he still hasn't recovered from that. But no, Michael Barbaro is a reporter for the New York Times who we talked about him last week, but he really got famous because he was at the 42nd Street subway station on one of the sort of like tunnels or like underpasses in the station, and took a photo of a homeless man lying on the ground like asleep or unconscious or something like that. You know, again, without his consent, just took a photo of a homeless man. And tweeted it at the MTA, saying the situation in the 41st Street underpass has become dangerous and unacceptable. And like that to me, like, I take the subway every day, and there are a lot of homeless people on the subway. Sometimes, like anyone who rides the subway, you can feel maybe ill at ease if they're being very demonstrable or mentally unwell in some way. But at no point have I seen a guy just like unconscious on the ground and thought, I'm the one that's really in danger here.
Yeah.
And just
I have to also.
Just begging someone to do something about this.
For me, I mean, that is a classic moment. It's hilarious. But for me, the moment that sums up Barbaro is one sentence that he wrote in an article last year already, in April of 2015, at the very beginning of the Republic of Bush. And at this point, like, Trump wasn't in the race. It was pretty quiet. People were trying to figure things to write about, because they were just following these guys as they, press the flesh at like county fairs in Iowa and stuff. And so he wrote this article about Jeb Bush's paleo diet and how it's changed his, like, now he doesn't eat, he passes on carbs and stuff like that. And it's like, it's a nothing article, but he tries to give it a patina of meaning, for like, what does this mean for his run? So he writes this sentence. Okay, so he talks about how he's been saying no to carbs at all of these different meals, these dinners that he's had. And so to try to give it some sort of relevance to the campaign, Michael Barbaro wrote the single worst sentence I've ever read in the New York Times. And that includes all of Judith Miller's shit about the run-up to the invasion of the war.
That killed hundreds of thousands of people.
Yes, worse than all of it. The rigid abstemiousness runs the risk of putting him at a dietary distance from an American electorate that still binges on carbohydrates and, after 8 years of a tea-sipping president, craves a relatable eater-in-chief.
Oh my God.
That's rough.
He deserved to be assaulted by all those handbags.
He should have been given a blanket party by every crusty hobo living underneath Times Square.
So
absolutely.
They, by the way, they don't let him cover Kasich events because he'll get PTSD. Kasich on stage and be like, "This is unacceptable."
Several men approached me with a bindle. They unspooled their bindles in front of me. There was a half-eaten can of beans inside.
The fingerless gloves, the level of fingerless gloves at this event is dangerous and unacceptable.
There was a trash fire. That wasn't up to code.
Governor Kasich, I do not care about why they wouldn't let you use the bathroom.
You buy something or get out, sir.
There was so.
But no, hold on a second. But he was Ross. This guy, Michael Barbaro, who's been an object of ridicule before. He was not only was Ross Douthat's best man at Ross's wedding. He was also they were high school friends too, right?
Yeah. They were best friends apparently, and just keeping in mind everything we discussed about Barbaro's interaction with a homeless man and Douthat's columns about Harvard Asians, unquote. New York Times, in a Mother Jones profile of Douthat, New York Times reporter Michael Barbaro says, there is at the heart of Ross this enormous tolerance. And he confides that he was his best man and best friend. He says, the whole point of my speech at the wedding was that two people can be as different as can be and still be friends. He is conservative. I am certainly not as conservative as he is. He is straight.
I'm a conservative is what he's saying.
Well, this is Barbaro.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, And he says, he is straight. I am not. We would get in these bruising arguments, but every year, even in college, we would go to midnight mass at St. Mary's. I think he enjoyed bringing me in there, so I would cease to be a sinner for one night every year. So that's the
what a wonderful friendship they have.
Hey, Michael. I see your sinning lifestyle. I'm also a gay man, but I only do it on boats.
I guess I shouldn't surprise me, but to find out the two of these guys are that close, it's just what is it's just 6 degrees of Kevin hate them is sort of how I feel about all this.
There's now we see all the Trump people who tweet at Michael Barbaro and shit like that, and they're like, "You fucking cuck piece of shit, I'm gonna murder you." And under normal, if they were tweeting it just you reported that you didn't even notice, that's terrible that happens to them just because they're in the media. But now I'm I think they should go farther. I look at the conservative guys making fun of all these guys. I think that they should step it up.
Well, I only have just one more bit here. There's a line I completely agree with Ross Douthat about, and it's where I'll leave it as far as he's concerned. It's from the profile. Ross's room is adorned with posters of Audrey Hepburn and Marilyn Monroe, as well as a towering tribute to Gladiator, the movie Gladiator, starring Russell Crowe. He's obsessed with this movie. It comes up a lot. He tweets about it a lot. Quote from Ross: I think that Russell Crowe's evocation of manhood is something all men should aspire to, particularly when there are such obvious parallels between Rome and the United States with the combination of splendor and decadence of empire. I actually totally agree with that.
Ross's college dorm room was adorned with posters of classic sort of female icons of the golden age of Hollywood and Gladiator, right?
Yes.
We're not wrong. I did just hear that, right?
Yes.
Okay. We'll move on.
Ross Douthat is Ralph Cifaretto from The Sopranos. The most weird version. Tony, she was trying to kiss me and told me she was on the pill. Beats the woman to death because she pulls out a diaphragm.
She was a whore, Tony, a whore.
There are
no values left at the Bing or Harvard.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Actually, just as an Easter egg, the one character on The Sopranos that you cannot not see Ross Douthat looking like is the Russian guy who Tony kills the friend of. He looks exactly like Ross Douthat. Valerie, yeah. And Ross Douthat also looks like, as we pointed out earlier, the serial killer in Too Many Cooks. And if anyone's ever seen Dr. Zhivago, he looks exactly like Rod Steiger's character, who's this aristocrat who rapes a princess.
She wasn't on the pill though, so he was
I'm not connecting that to Douthat's personality whatsoever.
We are not saying Ross Douthat is a rapist.
I'm just saying that Rod Steiger as the Russian aristocrat looks exactly like Ross Douthat in that movie.
So inspired by that, I have written the Roy Batty's Tears in the Rain monologue delivered by Rutger Hauer at the end of the film Blade Runner. I've created a Ross Douthat version. So I'm going to perform it for you now. Here we go. I've seen things you New York Times readers wouldn't believe. Bill Buckley's ass cheeks on fire off the shoulder of the Long Island Sound. I watched chunky Reese Witherspoons glitter lustfully in the dark in the Tannhauser basement. The timeless glamour of classic beauties like Audrey Hepburn, Marilyn Monroe, and Marlene Dietrich pass into the tawdry trollops of today. I've seen inscrutable Asians cluster together in Ivy League dining halls and been forced to order dinner by a corpulent Supreme Court justice after eating nearly 60 oysters. All those moments will be lost in time like tears in the rain. Time to fap.
It's a shame she's on the pill. But then again, who isn't?
Peace. Bye-bye.
Please.
Why I should be president is a great question. The reason why I should be president, I feel like I have to...
Excuse me, 2 days ago he said he would take his pants off and moon everybody. Nasty guy. He's a nasty guy.
Under President Jeb Bush...
Hey, it'll never happen.
And we don't need a weak person being president of the United States, okay?
You flew in. You flew in with your 767, didn't you?
Hey, I don't care.
The real con artist is Senator Marco Rubio. This little guy, I keep hearing that he's the only one that can beat me, but he's getting beaten very, very badly. So where does this come from? Let's stop fighting. Let's stop fighting. Let's stop fighting. Yeah. What are you gonna do with the doo-doo?
When we first assembled, we did it to do the reading series about Ross Douthat, Chunky Reese Witherspoon, and Skinny Dipping with William F. Buckley. That reading series was drawn from a book entitled Privilege, Harvard and the Education of the Ruling Class by Ross Gregory Douthat. This was published in 2006. This was sort of Ross before New York Times. It was actually copyright 2005. So this is before he was at the Atlantic. This is when he was a young up-and-comer, and as such was a little bit less self-aware, and as such a little bit more relatable, maybe a little bit even more likable. But Brendan James, smash that motherfucking like button. Real podcast producer hours. Went to the New York Public Library yesterday and took out a copy of Privilege by Ross Gregory Douthat. He handed it off to me. And now, for you, the Chapo listener, we are going to do the ultimate Chapo reading series. I have skimmed this entire book, and we're going to take you on a journey right now through it. So, just for context, I know we mentioned this on episode 3, but Privilege is Ross's memoir of his time at Harvard. And it is essentially his kind of critique of elite university culture and what he describes as kind of the culture of privilege that permeates among the ruling class. I'm reading from the back now. It says, in the spirit of David Brooks's Bobos in Paradise, a penetrating critique of elite universities. If that doesn't sell you on this book, I don't know what will. Okay.
Finger looking good.
Further context for this book. is that I'm reading from the prologue now. He says, I thought at the time, and still think now, that Harvard is a terrible mess of a place, an incubator for an American ruling class that is smug, stratified, self-congratulatory, and intellectually adrift. Now, at face value, I asked to myself, and maybe you are as well, from Ross Douthat's perspective, isn't a sort of like incestuous, privileged, elite ruling class like exactly the end result of what good, conservative, sound politics should be about? But no, I bring to mind, if you've read your Corey Robin, this will not be a surprise to you. Corey Robin's book, The Reactionary Mind, is an excellent heuristic through which to view Ross's dissatisfaction with the elite rich assholes he went to college with. Because as Corey Robin describes it, conservatism is not about preserving tradition. It is about essentially a revolutionary movement that is about creating ever new regimes of privilege and domination to overthrow the old ones because they are insufficiently, they're just not what they really want. The ruling class of America is just not pushing the pleasure centers and the conservative mind. They need to be overthrown, and Ross will tell you why. Okay, you guys ready?
Yeah, I was born ready, Nick. Let's go, man. Dirk Diggler demo. Keep the vocals up.
I'm going to start again with the prologue because it gives you some, I think we need some backstory, the Ross Douthat origin story. He describes a lot about how he's always had this fantasy of going to Harvard, Christ knows why. But he talks about his family.
Because he fucking took a briefcase to class in junior high?
Yeah. Because he had a roller backpack filled with Opus Dei manuals.
So he talks a little about his family background. He says, my father was a Stanford graduate, and his mother had been part of the first class of women at Yale. And he said they dropped off the Ivy League track fast in the late 1970s. They bounced around Berkeley for several years and then migrated east with their newborn son, landing in the southern Connecticut half by accident. They had both hoped to be writers during these early years of marriage, but then my mother was chronically ill with strange and inexplicable allergies by the time I was born. And he said, my father, who had drifted through law school before meeting her, took the Connecticut bar and began to practice law, which he continues to do successfully and unhappily to the present day. So
Ross starting out by establishing his parents as losers. Yeah.
He says,
classic rhetorical trick.
He says, so we became superficially bourgeois, taking the form of 1,000 similar families. An attorney father, a stay-at-home mother, 2 kids. My sister Janine was born when I was 9, and a pair of sturdy Volvos in the driveway. The reality was somewhat different, as my mother's ailments, impervious to conventional medicine, drove us to seek unorthodox cures. We drifted through various diets, first vegetarianism, and then a super vegan philosophy known as macrobiotics, and alternate medicines such as homeopathy and acupuncture. My sister was a home birth, delivered by 2 lesbian midwives, and breastfed until she was 2. Neither of us were given the usual round of vaccinations, since my mother was convinced, rightly I tend to think, that their side effects were worse than the faint risk of whooping cough. Comments?
Well, if no one else is going to say it, I will. A lot going on there.
So basically, he was raised by Jill Stein. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Yes, he was raised by Jill Stein. Ross's mother was a chiropractor, like Jill Stein. The reader can infer several things here. One can be that Ross was, in many senses, a pestilence upon his family from the time he was conceived.
Yeah.
Like they were doing good, and then Ross showed up, and all of a sudden the pall fell over the family.
His parents are happy. Then Ross is born, and then his mother came down with all these sympathetic ailments, like rashes, headaches, migraines,
just like
that are just inexplicable.
Just like this low note on a synthesizer starts, and it's like shit's getting real.
He had this this radioactive. Radio signature that just destroyed her brain. It gave her just piercing headaches to be in the same room with him.
Ross, when Ross was 5, he wandered into his parents' bedroom and his head turned around 360 degrees, and he said, "How can we expect women to perform as mothers if they can be mothers whenever they want?"
There was a nanny, and their family was having a big picnic, and then they all looked up, and the nanny was on the balcony, and she said, "This is for you, Ross. This is for you." And then she hung herself in front of everybody.
It's all for you.
It says, we were religious wanderers too, in the strange and ecstatic world of American Pentecostalism before we finally came to rest late in my adolescence in the arms of the Roman Catholic Church. But superficially, as I said, we were normal. But of course, like all American families, under that veneer of normality is just a fucking Marianas Trench of fucking pathology and fucking resentment. But throughout all this, Harvard... and the beacon of hope that it represented to his teenage mind was ever present. It was his North Star. And his dream was to go to Harvard and be in that world of that exciting world of ideas. And lo and behold, like all highly ambitious and driven basket cases, that's exactly what he ended up doing, is being accepted and attending Harvard. Now, he goes on, there's a lot of chapters early on in this book that I had to skim because they talk a lot about just sort of like the insufferable like culture of Harvard and all their weird like dining clubs and a cappella groups and the kind of, just shit I found unbearable to read and was not even that funny.
It's not like he's wrong that Harvard sucks.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but reading it, and I also, like Will, sort of glazed over at some of these earlier chapters. Like, they're not poorly written, but they're just not interesting. The substance is not that interesting. But you can tell that he really doesn't think Harvard sucks. You can tell he loves it. I mean, even in retrospect, the way he's writing about it, there's a romantic sort of, like Evil and Waugh style flavor to the whole thing.
Yeah, he writes early on, college parties, I later learned, are stinking, sodden affairs in the best of circumstances, thick with sweat and bad cologne and worse beer. The same 6 songs of the moment blasting from the ceiling and an awful air of heavily made-up desperation clinging to the people in attendance. Within a year, I was tired of them, tired of clawing through the crowds in search of warm beer and wretched screwdrivers, tired of gyrating and grinding, and generally pretending to have fun, tired of staggering home Saturday night, having searched in vain for a good time. So early on, the Harvard of Ross's dreams does not live up to the Harvard, the reality that he encountered in his freshman year.
Because he's Mark Corrigan.
Yeah, that is the other thing that when Brendan and I were talking about this last night, Ross definitely comes across here, like I said, in his more endearing moments, like the character Mark Corrigan of Peep Show.
Look at these dropouts. They think they're having fun. If we were agricultural workers, the day would already be half gone.
It's the Ross that has a hard time fitting in or having fun doing the normal things that young people are supposed to have fun doing that I found him at his most sympathetic.
Well, me too, because I totally felt that way in college too. I didn't like those parties, and I bet a few times I probably had one of those dumb, contrived, crotchety old man responses of, well, I'll leave you to your gyrating while I crack this book of Thucydides. But so I feel him a little bit on that.
Right, okay, that's it. Turn the music down. You can stop smoking your drugs. I'm making tea and toast for Sophie. I'm putting on Radio 4. Everything's normal.
But I kind of wonder what the fuck he was expecting at college parties. Do you think because it was Harvard they were going to be like doing cotillions and shit? Was there going to be somebody playing a pianoforte in the corner?
I am reminded of one of my favorite forum posts ever, and I've read over 1 million posts, so this is up there. It was someone on the Something Awful forum, and he goes, "Really? Getting laid is the pinnacle for a few minutes of pleasure and high-fiving your bros versus the experience of a well-crafted RPG where you experience love, loss, and personal triumph? You can keep your getting laid for social validation. I'll take Final Fantasy." And that is what Ross is. Yeah. Ross is that guy.
Despite the fact that a lot of this book is about... I think quite admirably, Ross is very honest in this book about his, feeling awkward in social situations and humiliating himself with women. Something I can't relate to at all in my college experience, but nonetheless, I found myself sort of feeling Ross in this regard. Even though my college experience was 180 degrees different, because I was like totally cool and never had any problem with the women. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
I just also want to say, any girls listening, I am a regular dude.
There's a chapter that I skipped entirely called the chapter I skipped entirely was called Approaches to Knowledge. I think he just gripes about grade inflation in that chapter. There's another chapter called The Strange Career of Suzanne Pommy, in which he relates the story of, as he describes it, a sort of queen bee of the Harvard scene who was a theta and head of the Hasty Pudding theater production. Hasty Pudding is another insufferable Harvard thing where like guys cross-dress and invite celebrities to join them in their hilarious pun and word games. So
I went to the Hasty Puddings Club and it was the gayest goddamn thing I've ever seen in Ehrlich, man. I can't shake hands from anybody from Cambridge.
So he writes about this girl Suzanne, who is his friend's roommate, who is sort of like I said, he describes her as a queen bee, and he says, I was never attracted to her, though she was attractive to many. She had sex appeal, but there was something off-putting in it, something that was wanton without being warm.
Fuck you.
Oh my God.
I find her ample bosoms and long tawny legs attractive, but she lacked a certain wholesomeness in her gaze.
all right, my dear. You may have quote-unquote Mondo jugs, but do you have the heart of values, or are you a decrepit old man on a sailboat?
Oh, yeah. Shake it, madam. Capital knockers.
I like that he uses her real name, by the way. That like really sells it. That's like this fucking chick probably has kids right now. And like, if anyone looks her up now, they just like read about fucking.
Harvard that Ross Douthat did not want to fuck.
Yeah. Hey, okay. Ross saw you had sex. No way, lady. No good. No good.
This is my thing, because I would have assumed in a book like this, the legal department of his publishing house would have had to change the names involved in it. But part of me thinks that perhaps they're real.
I think they're all real.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's nonfiction. I don't know. And like, I feel like in my experience in publishing, like our legal department would have made us change these names, but I'm so fucking glad they didn't, because Brendan sent me this as he skimmed through it first, and he sent me the list of names that are in this book are so fucking funny. Here are some of them: Henry Freck, Crawford Larch.
Oh my God.
Dude, fuck you. No.
Crawford Larch only has one pair of grandparents. That's how inbred Crawford Larch is.
It gets better. Lane Morgan Whittier.
Oh my God.
Oswald Saperstein.
Oh, fuck you.
And best of all, Eric Swaggart Allenby. we will return to Eric Swaggart Allenby.
Remember that name.
Remember the name of the name of Eric Swaggart Allenby, because he comes back later. But just to return briefly, I to the Suzanne Pommy chapter, I thought was actually sort of the cruelest one, because he talks about like this girl who is like, he uses her as like, indicative of this as sort of emblematic of this very like high achieving, ambitious, very calculated culture of social advancement and achievement at Harvard. But he like reveals halfway through the chapter that eventually the truth came out, and lo and behold, Suzanne actually came from a quite poor family in Kentucky, and she was spending lavishly at Harvard and doing things like, buying expensive clothes, but also like sponsoring inner city kids in Boston, and just sort of living the ideal Harvard life beyond her means. And then lately, it turns out in the chapter that she was embezzling thousands of dollars from the Hasty Pudding Theater Fund.
Good.
Yeah, dude, she's a fucking class hero.
Yeah.
Robin Hood, baby.
So this is a big scandal, like his first year at Harvard, and he also makes sure to note that it was Suzanne and her accomplice was her sort of gay best friend, who Ross makes sure to note didn't partake much in the campus life of Harvard because he was doing drugs and going to gay clubs most of the time.
Yeah,
That's what he was spending.
That's what they do. They can't.
Yeah,
They're
you
not
can't
part
trust
of
those people.
communities.
So yeah, there's a whole chapter on the rise and fall of this person, and it's almost like this Great Gatsby story. But I mean, I found Suzanne to be immensely sympathetic, and as you said, almost a heroic figure for fucking stealing all this money from these fucking assholes in the first place.
And I think that we could just note here that this is probably the first flash you get of how Ross, like, yeah, it's relatable. He's not that popular. No one likes him. He wears an ascot, but he's taking his anger out in a way that's nastier and ultimately pretty unbecoming.
And he takes it out on women and gays. What a shock.
Yeah. You know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of Demonius X, and I will tell you why. Because Demonius X, he will be like, I don't have too many friends. Frankly, I'm fucking depressed. And you're like, oh man, that sucks, Demonius. And then he'll be like, hey, you know what? Another thing, I'm sick of blacks. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, he makes you feel bad, and then you instantly know why he's in that situation.
So we move on from that to chapter 5 is when it really gets good.
The good
in a chapter called Love Stories, and here Ross begins to relate the story of his first college romance and heartbreak. And again, I give Ross credit for being sort of brutally honest about coming to college as a virgin and vastly less sexually experienced than his peers. Again, something I can't relate to at all.
Me neither.
Yeah, but
I was basically born. I don't even remember when I first got laid. It happened so long ago. By the time I actually got to college, I was sick of having sex.
That's why you would transition to gaming, which is more challenging.
Exactly. Yeah, it's more rewarding.
So he goes on about how he fixates on this girl named Rachel Polly. Again, I fucking hope that's not her real name.
Two of my favorite things.
She was in his dorm. She lived upstairs, and Ross got in his head that this will be my college girlfriend. And in this chapter, he describes what he calls college marriages. And again, to his credit, I thought he does capture something real about college, and he critiques these kind of these college, like, the relationships for people who don't hook up. They just sort of couple up, and they have this kind of stable but sort of like low risk relationship for the 4 years of college. And he critiques them actually on sort of almost anti-capitalist grounds. He ventures into this, like, he critiques them because they're sort of mercenary and they're kind of about positioning yourself for this sort of social life after college and career advancement. But he critiques them as sort of bloodless. And as he writes, lacking in ardor and conquest, which is his sort of romantic vision. And he fixates his romantic vision on this girl named Rachel. And Rachel begins, hanging out in Ross's dorm. I'm going to paraphrase a lot of this. He discussed it like he sort of gets friend zoned by Rachel. Rachel says to him, quote, "Ross, this is weird to say, but I could imagine marrying you, but I don't know if I could date you right now." And to Ross, that's like, that doesn't make sense at all. He's like, let's get married right now. I'm in love with you. Right. But eventually he kind of breaks, he breaks through a little bit and begins sort of like kissing her shoulders and giving her back rubs in his dorm room. But throughout all of this, Rachel definitely keeps him at an arm's distance. After a while, they make out a little bit, but lo and behold, Rachel begins hanging out with the sailing team, and captain of the sailing team, none other than our good friend Eric Swaggart Allenby. So Ross says, I remember striding across campus the following morning in a brilliant New England spring weather, thinking that if I ever had a son, no, let me be honest, if Rachel and I ever had a son and he wanted advice on women, I would tell him the ticket was persistence and plenty of it. Sure, the whole business had taken me 8 months of effort, but never mind that. I had emerged victorious, hadn't I? That night, for the first time in what seemed months, Rachel didn't come downstairs to my room. She didn't appear the next night nor the night after. I asked her roommates oh so casually if they had seen her. They had, but only briefly, sweeping through in the early evening to gather books and sailing stuff. Then Savina, who lived upstairs and dated my roommate Julian, said that she had passed Rachel in the yard walking with Eric Allenby and a whole gang of sailors on their way down to the river.
Holy shit.
So I did what any technologically savvy, slightly mad college student would do. I fingered Rachel. Now, that sounds worse. That sounds worse than it actually is. My eyes lit up when I read that passage, but you are gonna be disappointed because, quote, fingering was a suggestively named quirk of our email system, a frequently used stalking technique that allowed any user who knew Rachel's email address to discover by typing fingerrpoly@fas.harvard.edu into the command prompt. You could find out where she had last checked her email. By early morning, my computer screen looked something like this. Now, I'm not going to read all this, but just imagine Mr. Robot right now. And it's like he's looking at his computer screen, and what he found out is that every time Rachel Polly had logged into her email server over like 5 times in the last week was all from Eric Allenby's room.
Oh, shit. This is like in The Matrix when Neo asks Cypher if he can see the ones and zeros.
Yeah.
And Cypher's like, yeah, that's a girl in a red dress, girl in a black dress.
Yeah.
Except with Ross is like, I'm getting cocked, I'm getting cocked, I'm getting cocked, and I'm getting cocked.
So Ross has sort of a painful confrontation with Rachel about this. And and eventually it comes out that Rachel and Swagger Allenby are going on a sailing trip together.
It's always come back to the sailboat.
This explains so much of his pathology.
This is the primal scene for Ross. Rachel says, I did warn you not to get too attached, didn't I, Ross? Besides, when you think about it, would it have really worked out? I mean, be honest for a minute. Imagine 2 of us being together. I'd be off sailing all the time, and you wouldn't really be happy, would you? Dating me and always have to saying, she's off sailing? Would you? Why wouldn't I? What possible difference would that make? No, she went on, seeming not to hear. If I date anyone seriously, it should probably be someone on the sailing team.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't want to laugh at this because honestly, this is Ross at his most human.
Yeah.
She says, she said, musing aloud, maybe you should have gotten me drunk earlier, like back before spring break. Maybe things would have been different. Don't tell me that. Oh my God. Well, maybe it's true. Are you going to have sex with him? With Eric? On the trip to Florida. Ross, I really don't want to talk about this. So I went on and became ever more maudlin, tearful, and more pathetic. Again, I'm laughing, but like honestly, like I sympathize with Ross. Like I don't want to laugh at this, even though in no way I can relate to this whatsoever. I've never had an experience like this, but I feel for Ross. He says it ended there, except for my getting drunk on a bottle of cheap wine that night and hurling things around our common room, much to our roommate's dismay. Yes, it ended there. I don't think I ever had a real conversation with Rachel Polly after that long tear-stained night. There were emails, of course, and some drunken, pathetic, some approximating the dignity that I had badly failed to preserve. But our friendship, such as it was, ended that spring. And the time the Harvidian bustle went off to work, healing the wound and slowly transforming my memory of La Faire Rachel into what it really was, a freshman farce, not a Greek tragedy.
Okay. Look, this is Ross at his most vulnerable, and I want to respond with vulnerability to my own. When I was a sophomore in high school, this girl that I wanted to go to prom with, and I was like too pussy to ask her. I was in modern European history, and my friend told me that this girl was going to prom with another guy that I knew. And I had a highlighter in my mouth. I had the cap of a highlighter in my mouth because it was taken out to highlight something in my textbook. And I fucking bit down and snapped the highlighter and cracked one of my teeth because I experienced what Ross did. What I did not do was, after that, create a holistic vision of the world where I'm like, what happened to me is because of what society is doing to values and women, and everyone is wrong but me.
I think the interesting thing about that story is I love that sailing is such a primal thing for Ross, and I can see why he comes back to sailing at the end of this book.
He will be a Scientologist by the end of his life.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so the next chapter is called Safe Sex. And
this is the best one.
This is another good one because Ross relates a story that is actually very funny.
Yeah.
It begins with his friend Margaret, who goes to Smith, the all-girl, the sort of like the Lady Ivies. And she's begging Ross to come visit her at Smith and, quote, bring boys with you. I miss boys. Everyone here is either a lesbian or pretending to be one. So he's got like this good hookup. If he's looking to smash, I mean, go to an all-girls college. This is like Animal House. Like him and his friends take like a Animal House style road trip to the all-girls college to visit his friend Margaret. They're supposed to go out to all these parties, but unfortunately, like they get there and everyone went to parties the previous night. And this is what they end up doing. Back in the room, Margaret was writing emails, having exchanged her sweatpants for pajamas. Hot. Let's have White Russians, she said encouragingly when we flopped downcast on her rug. But the juice, but there was no Kahlua, so we drank screwdrivers. And when the orange juice ran out, we made gin and tonics, except there was no tonic, so there were gin and Sprites instead. Then we decided to watch a movie, but all Margaret had was Shakespeare in Love. So we watched late night TV, and then a slew of dating shows, and then the infomercials came on, and we knew it was time for bed. Are you guys having fun? Margaret asked me when Tom had vanished to the bathroom. Does it look like we're having fun? Anyway, she flounced. It's not like you fulfilled your end of the bargain. I was promised nice boys to hook up with Ross. I brought you Tom, didn't I? She sighed. Dear heart, Tom's not my type at all. So she said, continues. When he came back, we had a nightcap and lay talking in the dark, Margaret in her bed, Tom and I on the floor alongside. Well past midnight, I turned away and announced I was going to sleep, but they went on whispering for a long time while I tried and failed to drift off. At last there was a silence in the room, and I thought, finally, and rolled over just in time to see Tom sliding into Margaret's bed. His shadow gathered up in her quilted darkness, and then noises began, and I realized that no, this was rock bottom. Again, this is so peep show right now.
So Marco.
This is so peep show. But I have to continue. Withhold comments. I crawled with my sleeping bag to a far corner of the room, which meant that I was 5 feet away, not 2, from Margaret's overburdened twin bed. I huddled there while the minutes passed with agonized slowness, while the murmurs and sighs and damp kissy squelches merged with the squeal of the bed springs. And when I thought they had to be nearly done, there was a strange thwack, and then another, and then still a third, like the sound of a high five or a slapped face. Or maybe, I thought with mounting horror, a spanking.
This is like if H.P. Lovecraft tried to write a sex scene.
You know what this is like? This is like Ross was fucking Gomer Pyle in Full Metal Jacket, but for Harvard. He was sexual Gomer Pyle. This is if this is Full Metal Jacket for Harvard, this is the blanket party scene.
Ross just in the sleeping bag going, ow!
Oh, mommy!
Sorry, it continues. This actually gets even more Full Metal Jacket. I'm glad you brought this up. After the spanking, after the horror, the Dunwich spanking horror, he said,
oh my God.
Says, I fled then, abandoning my sleeping bag and stumbling out into the hallway, where I blinked in the sudden blaze of fluorescence. I wasn't sure what to do next. The corridor was a row of locked bedrooms, and an all-female college's common room was probably the lousy place for a man in his underwear to hang out. But just standing there in the hall seemed worst of all. So I made for the bathroom, where I stood for a long time staring in the mirror, trying to recognize myself in the wild-eyed insomniac glaring back at me.
What the fuck are you doing, Private Douthat?
If the hall RA wakes up, we're gonna be in a world of shit. I am in a world of shit, Tom.
Every girl's on the pill, Tom.
But he says, in trying to decide how angry I could be at Tom come the morning. Not very angry at all, came the unwelcome answer. After all, wasn't this why we were at Smith? Why we had traveled all this way to get drunk and crawl into bed with girls we didn't know? See, again, this is like a flash of humanity from Ross here, which makes me kind of like him. So he goes into the bathroom to hang out, and then he hears there was a padding of slippers in the hallway then, and girlish voices. I froze for a moment, then dove for the nearest stall, where I crouched on the toilet seat and listened and listened to the noise of running water and the scratch of toothbrushes, the soft sounds of gossip. You know, I thought there was someone in here earlier, one of them said, while the other girl spit and gargled. I carefully lifted my feet above the stall door out of sight. It's like a horror movie. It's great.
Oh, no, I think it's more like an espionage thriller.
Yeah.
Like, this is James Bond, incel James Bond. And this is like the exhilarating scene where he has to hide his sexual shame in the bathroom. This is called From Cambridge, No Love.
No, it gets better. She says, you know, I thought there was someone earlier here in her. I carefully lifted my feet above the stall door. I think it was a boy, came this conspiratorial reply. A boy? I wonder where he went. It was more than I could bear. I'm still here, I bellowed from the stall, and they squealed and fled. So that, to me, is like a genuinely funny scene.
No, that is like Kingsley Amis or P.G. Wodehouse or whatever.
But like that's the kind of thing, like if you were friends with someone and they told you that story of something they did in college, you would be doubled over laughing. But like Ross doesn't have, like, because he's a conservative, he doesn't have an actual sense of humor. Yeah. So the way it's presented is not funny. Yeah. But like if he could just tweak it about 5-10%, this would be a very funny piece of writing. Because like he's honest about his embarrassment and kind of like he said, I can't get any lower than this. Like
there's nothing funny about the degraded morality of America's college students, William.
Well, Matt, as you said, for the rest of the chapter, what he goes on to do is lament exactly that. He goes on to talk about this sort of it's sort of a fake libertine culture at Harvard, where like everything is supposedly allowed, but nobody is actually really hooking, or they're hooking up a lot less than you would think. But like all of this kind of like hookup and, you know, sex positive things, Ross really doesn't like. He has a thing about oral sex a lot. He talks about oral sex a lot. Yeah. Hold on, let me find this. He talks about
he's like Principal Skinner. Am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who have bad morals.
But he does have a big thing about oral sex. He talks about oral sex a lot and about how it's like the apotheosis of this kind of new sexual climate where you can just, you know, suck someone off or give someone an orgasm with your mouth without any real connection or commitment or possibility of producing a child.
Yeah, it sounds awful.
Here we go.
The bad stuff about sex with none of the good stuff.
Like responsibility.
And here's where Ross loses me after I think like his most human moment, his most relatable and funniest bit of writing. Is that he goes on and on, like, and he talks about how like contraception, but like the thing about Ross in all of this lamenting is that he's fundamentally too gun shy to go all the way and tell you what he really believes, because for as much as he critiques the kind of culture of social climbing and ambition at Harvard, he's very much a part of it, and he's actually quite forward about that. Because he's ambitious, he won't tell you flat out that he thinks contraception should be illegal. He just sort of laments it in this kind of woe is me, you know, this vague kind of slightly humorous but slightly melancholy cant. We talked in the first back in episode 3 about the Chunky Reese Witherspoon incident. This is where the Chunky Reese Witherspoon incident happens. Oh, my own attempts peaked the summer after my grand freshman failure. I wasted fruitless hours at UConn frats and seedy basement parties, making desperate conversation with various young women. Beer slut, my friends called one. Stumpy, they nicknamed another. So, of course, beer slut, we have to ask, is this beer nerd's cousin, and is Ross slandering her?
Worlds are colliding in this book.
Yo, if you fuck with the beer nerd, Ross, I'm gonna catch you coming out of work.
So, and then he goes on to the chunky Reese Witherspoon anecdote, which if you are a real deal Chapo head, you will always be familiar with. But if it's new to you, please return to episode 3 for the full explication of the chunky Reese Witherspoon anecdote.
Please turn the cassette over.
Okay, this is where Ross talks about sex ed. And I want to ask you guys if this was at all similar to what your experience of sex ed was like in high school. So he said, formal sexual education is thick with charts and diagrams, statistics, and gruesomely cautionary photos. This is what chlamydia looks like, my high school biology teacher would tell us, shoving a picture of a cankerous penis in our face. Little of this information sticks. Nobody remembers the exact risk of pregnancy or the timing of the menstrual cycle when they're fumbling in the dark with a naked woman. Nobody thinks back to that Trojan and banana demonstration when it comes time to put on the condom. Sex ed works, if it works at all, because of the underlying message of those classes, which has less to do with clinical details than with economic and social imperatives. Remember what matters, the young elites are told, first by high school teachers, then by college administrators, parents, and even peers. Remember your career, your parents' hopes, your grad school application, your earning potential as a single Ivy League grad in your early to mid-20s. Remember all of this, and be careful whom you screw and how. But Ross is he's a big critic of contraception, and he talks about condoms a lot. But the way he talks about condoms is funny. Like, it's a huge chore or it's really complicated. And look, sometimes putting a condom on can be annoying, but it's not hard. It's not difficult at all.
No, wait. Hold up. This is the first thing I totally agree with Ross is on. Condoms, we're done with it. No condoms. We the raw boys, stand up. Condoms are stupid. I could slam my dick in a door with a condom on. I wouldn't feel it. Ross, I'm with you. Real soldiers.
No, I thought we established this in Philadelphia that we only use unlubricated rubbers.
Hell yeah, we're the dry boys.
Dry boys. Chapo dry boys. Okay.
Maybe it's like in that Curb episode where Larry accidentally uses like the numbing condom the wrong way round, and Ross just was like, "Wow, this is horrible. I'm never doing this again."
Okay. Further on, as I promised, he does talk about oral sex.
Good.
And he says, everybody wins. You can have oral sex with a stranger without worrying about morning after pills. You can have it with an acquaintance or friend and tell yourself that it didn't mean much beyond the gratifying of a brief spasm of desire. And what I love about that is when Ross said brief spasm of desire, he should have said coming. But when I thought of brief spasm of desire, of course, I thought about Arnold and pumping iron and just going, I'm having a brief spasm of desire in the gym. I'm having a spasm of desire at home. I'm spasming desire all day. Think how lucky I feel.
Well, this is actually something, because I skimmed the book too, as we mentioned before, and I just am not clear on what Ross wants. You know, he's against too much sex. At other times, he's complaining people aren't having enough sex in the right way. And it actually reminds me of a David Foster Wallace essay. I hate David Foster Wallace, but I did read an essay of his that was about how condoms and safe sex and the sexual revolution has produced, you know, a dead hellscape of romance and blah, blah, blah. A lot of what Ross is saying, and that he was complaining that, like, humanity needs a new dragon to slay, and that how, like, you know, this is terrible because there's no risk anymore, and it's all just banal, and sex should be, you know, this like very, very risky adventure, and it's fact that
conquest and ardor, exactly, as Ross says. But no, Brendan, we talked about this yesterday, and this goes back to my original point about Corey Robin and how you have to understand the right wing in a certain way. You can't take it at face value that they're about tradition and preserving hierarchy. They're more radical than that. And Ross's attitude about sex here is like, he's like, the sex at Harvard is terrible and nobody's having enough of it, basically. Right. And this reminded me of the big clickbaity article that came out this week about like some study showing that millennials are having less sex than ever.
Yeah.
And in the reaction to that article just this week, the people that were most angry about it and most being like, these goddamn kids, were conservatives.
Yeah.
And like, again, on the surface level, it's like, well, what are you mad about? This is exactly what you should want kids are being less promiscuous. But for conservatives, it's like they're doing what we want, but for the wrong reasons. Or they're not having as much sex as they used to, but they're not having sex in the wrong way. So yeah, I think you have to understand Ross's complaints about sex and the ruling class through that lens. Okay, now this brings us to sort of the end of the book. And here is where Ross loses me. I've been building up, like, I actually sympathize with him, and I sort of felt a humanity in him that I hadn't before reading this book. But he fucking blows it all at the end of the book, becoming another fucking reptile again. When he discusses in the chapter The Days After, which, wouldn't you know it, is about 9/11, when 9/11 happened. Ooh. And of course, Ross, as he says, was, horrified by this, but he cannot help but betray how fucking excited he is by all of this. Yeah. And he says, he narrates, watching 9/11 happen and, the horror. And like every idiot in America in the days after 9/11, he immediately thought that, like, terrorist attacks are going to happen everywhere all the time. Yeah. So I just want to read here. He says, I expected car bombs or maybe even suicide bombers. I pictured an explosion every time I walked through Harvard Square, imagining the newsstand shattered, the street musicians and goth kids ripped apart, the red brick stained redder, a scream of sirens amid the smoke and broken glass and shredded newsprint. And what I love about this is, like, Ross is so disappointed that actually didn't happen.
Well, some of these guys actually, were open about it. Like, I think Christopher Hitchens, though he was making a transition nominally from the left.
He basically said he had a yard-long fucking hard-on 9/11.
He had a war chubby, and what he said, I think almost verbatim, was, it exhilarated me. And Ross doesn't quite go that far.
Actually, to be fair, Ross actually does say that.
Oh.
I tagged it, but he does say that he felt a sense of exhilaration.
Yeah, that's healthy.
And he says why. He says, our nation, this generation will lift, the dark thread of violence and our people for the future. Yeah. And Ross is a conservative. He like most conservatives, he felt like this is really our moment. Mm-hmm. And he goes on to, for insulting me personally, he goes on to shit on Gore Vidal and calls him a decaying monument, which I think is funny because in the previous chapter...
hold on a minute. Gore Vidal had just as much coiled potency as the fucking rotted corpse of William F. Buckley, whose dick you stared at.
More so. Like I said, you don't have to like Gore Vidal. I took offense to this, but more so because in the previous chapter, he literally describes sucking plaster dust out of William Buckley's dick. This is really good. He says in the same, this is classic Douthat right here. He says, in the same month, the first Lord of the Rings movie was released. Yeah. And I dragged Alice, this is another girl he's trying to get with, to it. Despite her avowed dislike of fantasy, there in the darkened theater, wondering if she would like the movie. She would. Wondering if I would ever muster the nerve to tell her I loved her. I would, but not until spring after she had broken up with her boyfriend. And then in the movie theater, months after 9/11, I heard Kate Blanchett's Gladriel breathe the movie's opening line. The world has changed, she said. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. The world has changed. So, 9/11, just like Lord of the Rings, like all conservatives really believe.
I do think that no one who has read the Silmarillion should be allowed to comment on politics or run for public office.
So yeah, he goes on about, he laments the fact that the ROTC wasn't on campus and talks about like this new sense of, purpose and meaning in the world. But of course, he says no one at Harvard, myself included, actually enlisted because it would, he frames it as it would, fuck up our career plans, but at no point does he actually mention the fear of actually dying in one of these wars. So there's a lot of sacrifices to be made, but mostly by other people. Yeah. And this is where Ross loses me entirely by being an absolute cunt after, of course.
Well, I mean, that is the perfect playbook. These guys get exhilarated by the idea of civilizational conflict because they know that they will be able to enjoy all of the bloodshed vicariously. They know that they'll never have to worry about being personally endangered by it, that it can be totally a game to them. It can be totally like erotic thrill. So of course they get fucking psyched.
Actually, but before I get to the very end of this story, I want to do a brief digression. This is an anecdote I told Brendan about my college experience, which the first week of my freshman year was when 9/11 happened. And being a lifelong New Yorker, it was a surreal experience for me. It, like everyone, it was terrifying at the time. But in the back of my mind, I knew there was no reason for my family or anyone I knew to have been in the Twin Towers. But it was a genuinely frightening moment. But that very night, like I said, in my first week of college, I got busted by campus security for smoking weed in my dorm room.
That's the real.
And as a result of it was,
yeah, it is.
And the result of that was I was made to go before some sort of a star chamber of campus administration and their kind of Vichy student collaborators. And during this actual meeting, this is my asshole moment in college. They were like, "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" And I literally was like, "Well, I'm from New York City, and my whole family is from New York City."
Yes.
Well,
and 9/11 did happen.
Hell yeah.
I was like, well, the date was sort of significant. And, I think it should be taken into account, my, very minor transgression in the large scheme of things. And one of the guys who was like the sort of upperclassman on this little discipline board got really angry and was like, almost did an actual, "How dare you, sir?" He was like, "I don't think it has anything to do with this. And I'm shocked that you would even bring it up." And I was like, well, I had to give it a try.
Yeah. I took a risk.
I have a funny 9/11 story. My brother went to Vassar in upstate New York, and like the day of 9/11, he like called our house and was like, "I'm okay," and my dad went, "Yeah, no shit. You're in fucking Poughkeepsie. Why wouldn't you be?"
The thing I like about Will's story, it reminds me. You remember in The Loop when
oh right
yeah when the gangly guy he had sex he cheats on his girlfriend. He cheats on his girlfriend and then he gets caught and he's under the spotlight with like in public and he goes, maybe in a way it was just I was just trying to stop this bloody war. And that's what Will was telling the kid. I also went to Skidmore, so I know.
Oh, by the way, for listeners to the show, Brendan and I attended the same college, Skidmore.
Yeah.
Thoroughbreds represent, baby.
Absolutely, fucking thoroughbred to the very end.
Woo.
Yeah,
Skidmore, baby, alumni. By the way, if you are a Skidmore college student listening to this and would like to arrange to have a podcast celebrity come and speak on campus, two podcast celebrities who are famous alumni of the school.
Indeed.
All it will take is a couple $1,000s and free room and board in the finest hotels in Saratoga for us to do that. So, and by the way, if Don Hastings is there, please tell him I say hi.
Same.
If anyone from my alma mater, Gulan University Online, is listening,
but I was at I was at my job the other day, and I met a journalist who is Turkish, and she was genuinely like gobsmacked at how much I knew about Turkey, and asked where I learned all this, and I didn't tell her.
It was too embarrassing. Yeah, okay, to close it out, we're wrapping it up with Ross here. I just want to read from the very last paragraph of Privilege, the Ross Douthat story. He says, "I hope in the end that I love Harvard as we should love the world, not because it is good, it is not, but because there is good in it and things worth fighting for." That may ring familiar to you if you've seen a little film called Seven, starring Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman.
Almost verbatim what Morgan Freeman says.
This is almost verbatim the very end of Seven. Ross Douthat paraphrases for the end of his book.
He says, was a Hemingway quote in the first place. So double plagiarism. Right. Well done, buddy.
Morgan Freeman quotes Ernest Hemingway and then adds his own bit, which Ross also takes.
Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part.
But he continues after that bit of very clever, nobody noticed that, Ross, it's okay.
Condoms are in the box, by the way. He's asking what's in the box.
What's in the box?
He's on the pill.
Yeah. Ross... He can. Perhaps the rest will pass away, until in my memory and the memory of my classmates, only the best remains. The beauty of the place and the promise of greatness, a promise that went unfulfilled in my 4 years, but endures nonetheless, as if around another corner, through another ivied gate, there waits the university of our imagination, the Harvard of our unrequited dreams. And that's beautiful. And what I love about that, thinking back on the college experience of Ross, and definitely not my own, the college of our dreams is an unrequited one. Somewhere out there in the fantasy world, in the Elysium fields, there was a college where we all fucked and had a great time.
Amen, brother.
To quote Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, in a better world, I would have been the one fucking in a sleeping bag at Wellesley. But we don't live in that world.
Ours is a fallen one. And hence, that is the nature of, I think, the conservative philosophy. I think, actually, and I mean this genuinely, actually, I think this book, Privilege, does do a good job of representing the conservative worldview.
Yeah.
In a kind of succinct way. And you know, really, Ross is actually not a bad writer.
He's not.
No,
he's
really not.
He's a bad person, but
Yeah.
it's an interesting read, especially if you can't relate to any of the humiliations within it, like myself. Or any of my co-hosts.
Yeah, no, every part where he's like, I was surprised by, couldn't relate. I've never been surprised by anything.
Yeah.
I've never been denied sex. I've never even sought it out. It's like it's happened to me. It seems like happened to me where like I go places and girls are like, I want you to fertilize me. And I'm like,
It sounds like Ross.
I'm just over it.
Ross could have a good shot at being a Grey Wolf co-host with his non-sexual track record.
Ross, come on the show. Yeah, you're now a fixed constellation in the Chapo universe. Ross Gregory Douthat, everybody. That concludes this, our most epic Chapo reading series ever. Privilege, Harvard and the Education of the Ruling Class. I put it to bed now, and I leave it to you, our listeners, to absorb the message and apply the lessons in your own life. Let's talk about another New York Times columnist. He's favorite of the show. Legend. Goat. Ross.
Yeah.
Ross.
The greatest man to ever put on the op-ed jersey.
Raising that jersey to the rafters. Ross Douthat.
He doesn't look as young as Brett Stevens, but he actually is much younger.
He's far younger, yeah.
He's far younger.
Well, I mean, Brett Stevens, though, one of the reasons he is so anti-Iran is that a Persian wizard put a curse on him when he was young, so he's always going to look well.
And he's been cursed to lick a big lolly wherever he goes.
Brett Stevens
Imagine my surprise when the tolerant left put me in a child sailor outfit.
Knocked off my pinwheel hat.
Yeah. Spun the propeller on my cap.
Ross was getting horny today. Did you guys see
Yes.
that?
Oh, hell yes.
That's what we want to talk about.
We'll get to that. The setup for this is Ross, and again, this column speaks exactly to this mentality and to Ross's utter cowardice as a fucking writer. He wrote an article last week in the Sunday opinion section titled, "Is there a case for Le Pen?" Ross, just write the op-ed piece, "The Case for Le Pen," okay?
Yeah.
Why this fucking demure attitude, right? We all know who you're rooting for, Ross, but he has to play footsie with the only people who really take him seriously are his deluded liberal readers who think that they're like, this, I'm feeding my mind. I'm feeding my mind a diverse cast of vegetables and opinions.
Yeah. Good sir, would you go to the greatest banquet in the world and only eat dessert?
The piece itself is not even worth reading from. I mean, as soon as you saw that title, Ross, just make the case for fucking Le Pen. Have some fucking balls. This is your job. This is what you get paid 6 figures to do. And he was just, he had in it. He seems to be the best line in it actually is he said, Marine Le Pen was, instrumental in distancing, the Front National from the more, strident anti-Semitism and open fascism of her father. And he says, of course, they are positioning for votes. And I just love that "of course" in there. That's always a tell. Or it's just of course they're doing that. That should be taken into consideration. It's as if you would have a problem with any of their open anti-immigrant.
To be sure. It's a to be sure.
Yeah, to be sure. Yeah. And he's like, and he also mentions that many of her anti-immigrant racist views are quite common in French politics, so it's hard to single her out. And it's just like, well, if everybody's doing it,
yeah, why not?
In a way, it's not bad. So Ross is an utter coward, of course, but Matt, of course, was referring to this amazing tweet today from Ross that I think is actually the most grotesque thing he's ever written.
God.
And this surpasses even the Chunky Reese Witherspoon incident or any of the just soul-shatteringly embarrassing moments from Privilege. Douthat, NYT today, 5/3/17, 4:34 p.m.
Remember, there's context. He was live tweeting the French presidential debates like an asshole.
One-handedly.
Scintillating, yeah. Ross writes, what if Hillary had Le Pen's smoker's voice instead of her own?
What if Le Pen was 15 feet tall and she crushed me under her feet and I just got a mouthful of toe jam and she called me a little worm and rubbed my head into the carpet? What if she strapped me to a radiator and beat me with Hot Wheels tracks until a crucifix formed on my back?
Le Pen is doing breath play with the French electorate at the moment, cutting off their oxygen just enough to make things interesting. And of course, the answer to Ross, if Hillary had Le Pen's smoky Kathleen Turner voice, the answer is you'd be cranking off thinking about her and not Le Pen.
I feel great. He's just Patty and Selma. You got a van you can throw an old broad into?
I gotta go change wigs. I'm chilling in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
I may not be the mask, but I'm smoking.
There he is. Oh, and I love that. Like Ross is never thirsty for like the way like David Brooks is, for instance, for hot younger women.
Yeah. Let me email that.
It's always for like these crones, like fucking Le Pen or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, he's like, what was that a Simpsons joke where it's like, what, you don't think you don't think Eudora Wealthy is erotic? I find intellect and power sexy.
No, but sorry, Ross just had a follow up to his "Is there a case for Le Pen" column, or like I said, if he had a fucking any editors there, the column would have just been titled "The Case for Le Pen." He follows it out that says, "In my Sunday column, I raised the possibility that a vote for Marine Le Pen in next weekend's French presidential runoff might be more defensible than a vote for Donald Trump in 2016. The internet did not agree, and perhaps neither did Le Pen herself, since she rewarded my controversial foray by immediately getting mired in a plagiarism scandal." Because it's like,
that's the worst thing you can do.
That's what's bad about her, is that she plagiarized a
When you're a
speech.
grade-grubbing shithead, that is the worst thing.
Yeah, that is true.
And I do like the idea that he took it personally. Like, he sent her the note that said, "Do you like me? Circle yes or no."
Mademoiselle Le Pen, the American who looks like a thumb, has endorsed you. We're going to win. Every French person loves Ross Douthat.
So yeah, I think that the point with Douthat over there again, like I said earlier, is just like, I don't know. It genuinely baffles me why anyone buys like this game he does where he plays, like I said, demure, or he he's just like doesn't show too much leg, in any of his columns, but like it's obviously what he believes in.
Yeah,
right?
it's like he's trying to coyly uncross his legs to show you a little bit, and a turd rolls out of his pants. That's how I would describe Ross's writing.
It's evocative.
That is quite an image.
Yeah. It's my ill-reviewed Basic Instinct remake. It's a little bit of a slapstick element.
Now I'm just thinking of the scene from Basic Instinct, but when she uncrosses her legs, it's just Ross's face.
Oh, I know, and I'm jacking off.
I mean, look, when do the events of Halo take place?
I don't know.
Hundreds of years in the future. So we have to get through a little bit of a rough patch before we're there. And this is the rough patch. We're getting through it. We're going to do it. We're going to win.
The events of Halo were the rough patch.
Are you kidding me? Do you see how fucking cool they looked? Yeah, a lot of people died, but they had colonized space. The fucking Spartan armor, fucking awesome. Master Chief had a hologram that maybe he'll fuck in the next game.
We have holograms now.
Yeah, you can't fuck them. You're not friends with them.
Yeah, you can't fuck a hologram, man.
Not yet.
Yeah,
You gotta get
this guy thinks the holograms like him. What? You think that cashier likes you because she told you you have a nice day?
You got to get the hard light holograms, right?
Yeah.
From Star Trek. Is that a thing? Because like in the Star Trek, you could fuck the holograms, right?
Yeah.
On the Did anyone
me and
watch
Chris
Star
have
Trek?
never seen Star Trek.
I thought Chris for sure watched Star Trek. I thought for sure you watched Star Trek.
I don't
Virgil?
really, but I know what you're talking about.
I thought you could fuck the holograms in Star Trek.
Oh, is that what Han Solo was?
No.
That's like this room with like a huge
Lay
simulation
troll
in
face. Lay troll face. Like a sir.
Matt, if you just get VR equipment, you can do that now.
You know you can't. You just look at the hologram. You'd have to still crank your own meat. As long as you're
I'm
masturbating.
sure there's a way you can sort of homebrew a system where
As
you're in a
long-
fleshlight and it's mechanical.
There are, yeah. There's, I think that technology exists.
As long as you're masturbating, it's not. You're not. You're not interacting with the technology, in my opinion. It has to be doing it for you to actually be having sex. Call me a Luddite or whatever, but if you're not actually, if your hands are involved, you're not having
No, your
sex
hands
with the
wouldn't be
technology.
involved. It's just this isn't something like Sony would sell. You'd have to, buy it.
So you're saying that right now, in the year 2018, you could jerry-rig a system where you could have sex virtually without any kind of you touching yourself.
I don't think you'd have to jerry-rig it. I think there are distributors of this kind of thing.
Okay, but are you talking about, well, how do you engage the genitals?
It's a mechanical device.
Okay, we have to stop talking about this.
Yeah, why do you want to know so much about this?
Wow, this stopped being a bit. It's just you wanting to perfect the technology.
Go on Kickstarter. That's like every Kickstarter now.
Well,
trying to make the perfect artificial clit.
No, you know why I'm asking? Not for myself. I would never be interested in this, but this is a good transition because I'm worried about people who now apparently, according to the elite media, I'm supposed to be worried about and be very sympathetic towards and want to find a solution for, and that are incels. It's a media ecology that's powered by sexual neuroses, and then someone is slightly less good at it, and you can just totally. But the thing is,
people like any hierarchy,
right?
They're a little bit above the incels, and they're like, "Look, I have sex. It's great."
But the thing is that that's the real issue, though, is that incel is a specific thing. It's not just somebody who can't have sex. It's somebody who has turned that into a justification for their hardened misogynistic worldview that they are reinforced by through online. They're people whose disaffection and you can argue about whether it's a frustration with the fact that they aren't able to dominate women the way that they could have in previous generations, or that they're just lonelier the way everyone is in the 21st century. Either way, it starts with a sense of being unable to engage in traditional romantic relationships. And then the thing that makes them different than just a general term of someone who is romantically unfortunate or a virgin or something is somebody who then takes that frustration and then plows it into the internet and then gets into a community of similarly afflicted men who reinforce each other's worst pathologies and instincts, and then turn that into basically a worldview that is essentially nihilistic, but powered by at the heart by a misogynistic rage. What's such a trip, though, is that the reason people are talking about incels now is that one of them plowed into a bunch of people in Toronto and killed them,
right,
in a literal ISIS-style attack, and within a week, you have people in the pages of the New York Times going, "Well, let us hear him out." Which I don't remember happening after the Nice attack. I don't remember any articles like ISIS. Do they have a point? Should the great Satan of the West be destroyed? Should the caliphate be extended across the globe? Nobody had that. Nobody wanted to bat that around. But because these guys are relatable to a certain type of, I don't know, Douthatian sexual freak, all of a sudden their violent outbursts are calls for help instead of cries to be wiped off the face of the earth. But I promised that I wasn't going to read the Douthat article. I said that on Twitter, and I haven't. Virgil, you looked at it. Is there anything worth responding to in it? Yeah, I'm taking your word for it because I'm not reading it.
You want to give it a shot?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. This one's titled The Redistribution of Sex by Ross Douthat. One lesson to be drawn from recent Western history might be this. Sometimes the extremists and radicals and weirdos see the world more clearly than the respectable and moderate and sane.
You laugh at me because I'm different. I laugh at you because you're all the same.
All
Ross
kinds of
Douthat.
phenomena, starting as far back as the Iraq War and the crisis of the euro, but accelerating in the age of populism, have made more sense in the light of analysis by reactionaries and radicals than is portrayed in the organs of establishment opinion. Therefore, I will be resigning because this is all a farce.
You just basically, you wrote yourself out of a gig.
This is part of why there's been so much recent agitation over universities and op-ed pages and other forums for debate. There's general understanding that the ideological mainstream is inadequate to the moment, but nobody can decide whether that means we need purges or pluralism, a spirit of curiosity and conversation, or a furious war against whichever side you think is evil.
I can decide. Don't fucking put words in my mouth, Ross Douthat. I can decide. I know. The time for jibber jabber is over.
For those more curious than Marshall, one useful path through this thicket is to look at areas where extremists and eccentrics from very different worlds are talking about the same subject.
So ISIS killers and incels, basically, he means.
Such overlap is no guarantee of wisdom, but it's often a sign that there's something interesting going on. Op-ed pages are a land of many contrasts. Which brings me to the sex robots. Well, actually, it brings me to the case of Robin Hanson, a George Mason economist, libertarian, and noted brilliant weirdo. Commenting on the recent terrorist violence in Toronto, Hanson offered this provocation. If we are concerned about the just distribution of property and money, why do we assume that the desire for some sort of sexual redistribution is inherently ridiculous?
Wait a minute. You're a libertarian. You don't credit the redistribution of wealth. So what the fuck are you even talking about? You prima facie refuse to redistribute wealth, but you're going to want to talk about redistributing fucking sex like it's a goddamn commodity, but you won't redistribute any actual commodities?
Well, that's really the essence of libertarianism.
So it's over then. Shut up. He's finished.
After all, he wrote, one might plausibly argue that those with much less access to sex suffer to a similar degree as those with low income, and might similarly hope to gain from organizing around this identity to lobby for redistribution along this axis and to at least implicitly threaten violence if their demands are not met.
Hold on a minute. So,
I don't know that you could plausibly argue that, but you could definitely argue it, Professor Walking Stick.
Okay, no, hold on a minute, though. He might be doing something else. He might be trying to undermine the case for wealth redistribution by saying, well, if by your logicking it, and saying if you want to redistribute wealth, doesn't that mean you should also want to force women to have sex with these weirdos?
That's what.
And if you don't want to force them to have sex with these weirdos, then you shouldn't redistribute wealth. That is the only way that argument is even surface plausible. That's also incredibly stupid, but it's the only way that's even surface plausible.
Well, wealth is a lot like sex. You know, if you don't have any experience with it, you come into it, you either blow through it in 30 seconds or you never have any fun with it.
Well, the tell is him saying, or at least implicitly threaten violence if their demands are not met. No, that's probably the case, but I guess Ross did not realize that. Just took it at face value.
Whiffed on it that hard. That's amazing, Ross. God, you dummy.
Okay.
You little bearded dipshit.
Skipping ahead. A number of the critics I saw engaging with the essay tended to respond the way a normal center-left writer like Weissman engaged with Hanson's thought experiment, by commenting on its weirdness or ideological extremity, rather than engaging fully with its substance. But to me, reading them together offers a good case study in how intellectual eccentrics, like socialists and populists in politics, can surface issues and problems that lurk beneath the surface of more mainstream debates. By this I mean that as offensive or utopian the redistribution of sex might sound, the idea is entirely responsive to the logic of late modern sexual life, and its pursuit would be entirely characteristic of a recurring pattern in liberal societies. So this is Ross going back to form here. First, because like other forms of neoliberal deregulation, the sexual revolution created new winners and losers, new hierarchies to replace the old ones, privileging the beautiful and rich and socially adept in new ways and relegating others to new forms of frustration.
Rich and attractive people could never get laid before the sexual revolution.
It wasn't at all like until about 1963, if you owned two hats, you could fuck anyone.
Yeah.
They had to fuck you.
Louis XIV was just sadly jerking off into his chamber pot. He could never get laid.
This is the classic Ross, right? Because it's like, if you look at sort of a lot of people's sexual relationships now, you can go, yeah, a lot of these are wrong, and we've commodified so much human interaction that these are awful and unfulfilling for people, like all of modern life is. But his solution is to harken back to a past that never existed.
Yes.
And he goes in the complete wrong direction. Instead of going, maybe we shouldn't commoditize so much of our interaction. Maybe we live in an outstandingly lonely time. Maybe the problem isn't so much promiscuous sex as it is everything is transactional. It's let's make it so that you have to give someone 4 donkeys to get a hand job.
Let's bring back mandatory tithing to the one true church.
Second, because in this new landscape and amid other economic and technological transformations, the sexes seem to be struggling generally to relate to one another, with social and political chasms opening between them, and not only marriage and family, but also sexual activity itself in recent decline. Third, because the culture's dominant message about sex is still essentially Hefnerian, despite certain revisions attempted by feminists since the heyday of Playboy
that was
philosophy.
the Armenian guy who invented sexual harassment.
A message that frequency and variety in sexual experience is as close to a summum bonum as the human condition has to offer, that the greatest possible diversity in sexual desires and tastes and identities should not only be accepted, but cultivated, and that virginity and celibacy are at best strange and at worst pitiable states.
I gotta paraphrase friend of the show and frequent guest Jacob Baccarat, who on Twitter pointed out one of the central fallacies of Ross's point there when he says that one of the things about Hefnerian sexual ideology is that it prizes variety. But the thing about Hefner was that his sexual aesthetic and concept was incredibly monotonous. It was basically a million copies of the same person. And Douthat has because he has a literal minded dullard, he thinks, well, a lot of different women, but all women who essentially look the same, because Hefner was a reactionary figure. He was trying to bring back sort of the pre-World War II gender dynamics that have been disrupted by women entering the workforce. And that Hefnerian sexuality is conservative. And that's part of his inability to reckon with the past the way it actually was, as opposed to the way that he thinks of it in his head.
Well, Hefner for these guys is kind of what like Jay-Z is to more boomer T-Con conservatives.
Yes,
which
that's good.
Which is to say, yeah, Jay-Z for the past 10 years has been like, I set up the investment trust. No taxes, hit bust. Went to the fashion show. Oh no. What's that on the floor? And it just did nothing but, starting restaurant groups, the best type of furniture you can buy when you have a young child. But if you talk to a conservative about it, because he like met Obama or whatever, they're like, this man, he's talking about his bitches and his hoes and selling crack, which he hasn't done in years. But with Hefner just for seemingly 150 years had a magazine where it was like, what if a woman wore a boat captain hat, but you could see her nipples? Just very boring, like the type of thing you jack off to when you're 12 and you're afraid of seeing a vagina or whatever. But they're like, this is the most freaky shit I've ever seen. This bitch is smoking a cigar and she's half naked. What the fuck? Put it away.
Oh my God, and it's right next to the 10 best hi-fis of 1965.
This is too much.
Well, this master narrative inevitably makes both the new inequalities and the decline of actual relationships that much more difficult to bear, which in turn encourages people, as ever under modernity, to place their hope for escape from the costs of one revolution in a further one yet to come, be it political, social, or technological, which will supply, if not the promised utopia, at least some form of redress for the many people that progress has obviously left behind. There is an alternative conservative response, of course, namely that our widespread isolation and unhappiness and sterility might be dealt with by reviving or adapting older ideas about the virtues of monogamy and chastity and permanence and the special respect owed to the celibate.
Okay.
Yeah, do you remember when your wife was like a slave that you had kids with?
And also, how are you doing that without dismantling capitalism? The force behind every single fucking thing that he's talking about? You're going to allow this rampaging fucking de-atomizing machinery, this alienated economic system that turns people towards its purpose and away from any kind of idea of the self?
No. Ross needs to go on PUA hate and explain to them the virtues of monogamy and chastity.
Well, that's what the alt-right is. The alt-right are guys who went from that PUA to this shit doesn't work pipeline, and then we're like, you know, it does work if we completely return society to how I imagine the 50s were.
But in such an insanely small bore way. At the beginning of this article, he sort of suggests that his entire existence and the existence of a thing like the New York Times op-ed page has essentially been superseded by reality and is pointless. But then he confirms that by, after through his whole article, pointing out the real chasm and a real crisis, an identity and relationships in humans in late capital existence. And his response is tax credits for abstinence-only education.
That's true.
It's like, how do you look into the abyss and come out with that as your fucking response?
That's true. He was all over Rubio adding the fucking the little measly child tax credit to the Trump tax bill. And he's like, we did it.
Yeah.
We did it, everybody.
Yeah, this is gonna turn it all around, folks. This is gonna make whole what has been broken apart. This is gonna make straight what has been rendered crooked. It's gonna be fucking taxpayer assisted inducements to have a kid in wedlock. Insane gibberish.
Shout out to everyone who doubted me, but we got $200 for new parents. Woo! Family's coming back, baby.
Congratulations. Congratulations. You just had a kid. Here's your $200 check for having a kid. Here's your $10,000 bill for having a child.
Your Rubio
in this hospital.
Your Rubio bucks balance is negative $125.
But I expect the logic of commerce and technology will be consciously harnessed, as already in pornography, to address the unhappiness of incels, be they angry and dangerous or simply depressed and despairing. The left's increasing zeal to transform prostitution into a legalized and regulated, in scare quotes here, sex work, will have this end implicitly in mind. The libertarian and general male fascination, that's redundant, with virtual reality porn and sex robots will increase as those technologies improve. And at a certain point, this is just one long run-on sentence, and at a certain point, without anyone formally debating the idea of a right to sex, right-thinking people will simply come to agree that some such right exists, and that it makes sense to look to some combination of changed laws, new technologies, and evolved mores to fulfill it. Whether sex workers and sex robots can actually deliver real fulfillment is another matter, but that they will eventually be asked to do it in service of a redistributive goal that for now seems creepy or misogynist or radical feels pretty much inevitable.
So he's saying that the dumb, like Ben Shapiro take on universal healthcare, which is that you force doctors to work at gunpoint for free, will happen if we legalize prostitution.
Yeah, essentially. Because he wants to
really went for it this week, Ross. He wants
to
it all out in the
blame,
field.
He wants to blame this hyper accelerating capitalist sort of endpoint where people have essentially been stretched into their individual fucking molecules, like somebody being pulled into a black hole. He wants to turn that into the fault of the 60s cultural shift. He wants to blame that on birth control pills.
My culture, my Western patriarchal culture is so strong. It's the strongest ever. We never should have left it. By the way, it was destroyed by guys with bowl cuts smoking dirt weed and going, "Hey, can you give me a groovy hand job?"
He's just a sad wizard who lives in a D&D realm where a bunch of dirty hippies cast sexual promiscuity and then did like a dex roll. Is that a thing? I don't know. Is that?
Yeah, I don't think you would use a dex roll.
I don't know.
Okay.
What if you're finger blasting?
They cast a spell for sexual promiscuity, and then they
probably be an aura.
Okay, an aura of sexual promiscuity, and then they rolled what do they roll?
I mean, it depends, but generally, I mean, I think if the aura would last a certain period of time, you'd have to renew it, or perhaps to use magic spell points in order to sustain it.
Okay,
not me, dude. They've been saying my aura lasts forever.
The short answer is it depends what class you are.
All right. Well, okay.
I'm a fucker. Yeah. So in the game, I got clones, and they've never had sex, but they're clones of me, so they're pretty good at sex.
Okay, so he thinks that happened.
Yeah.
As opposed to capital acceleration be capitally accelerating. That's why, as I said before, I will always respect the Nick Land psychopaths who identify the actual vector and just say that's good, and we should all cease. We should want to cease to be. We should want singularity, and we should want to basically get rid of humanity.
What I don't understand,
instead of trying to split the difference and just basically want to for the point of feeling right. Like at the end of the day, guys like Douthat, they don't actually care if anything changes. They just want to be on record as of being the soft, quiet, correct voice of decency who is not listened to in the howling, profane public sphere that's been cheapening by the day. They just want to be that. They don't actually care if anything changes.
Well, what I don't understand is how are men worse off now post-sexual revolution, or how are the incel men worse off? Other than that, they're more envious, I guess.
Yeah, the old path for incel men was that you worked in a little brick shed on a rich guy's property, and they're like, oh yeah, that guy wipes my donkey's asses, and he's a simpleton. It was that you were a Torgo.
Yeah. And you were alone in your Torgo-ness. Now all the Torgos get to go online and assure each other that it's not your Torgo-ness that's the problem. It's the women. They all got together and decided that they're only going to distribute their sexual goodies to the Chads and going to prevent you from having it, even though you are imposing upon them the exact same lookist standards that you're blaming them for having on you. That's the thing I never got about those motherfuckers. They are mad at hot women for only wanting to be with hot men, but would never consider being with someone who they would consider less attractive.
So the general objection is that women now have higher standards and more reproductive freedom, and not, they're being in the workforce. They don't, have to rely on marrying an incel man.
Also, like, that first part isn't even true. You don't spend enough time around women if you really think that. You follow any woman and you look at her timeline. Alan Dershowitz could get it.
Yeah. Oh my God, the Noid could crush my.
Oh my God.
Next, Ross Douthat.
Oh,
Ross Douthat had a really funny one.
Ross the boss.
He was going on and he said, he says here, I also can't condemn McCain. It's a long thread with he's sharing his thoughts on McCain. He goes, I also can't condemn McCain's choice of Palin in 2008 because I sort of urged it upon him at the time. She was, oh my God. She was chosen.
I like how he owns that.
Well, she goes,
Good for you, Ross.
Yeah, actually, I gotta say, like, Ross has sort of grown on me in a way. Is like one of these. I think he's a little bit more honest than most of these other media.
Ross is at least
gremlins.
I'm also enjoying the later Orson Welles style Douthat.
Oh, the Palins.
Ross is at least like a character. He at least has he has a personality. Like, I pretty much know everyone else you're going to have on this list, and they just all, like, their personality is being like,
Nazi has no principles. She's just a chin.
Their personality is just being like, oh, it's Wednesday and I've had 3 beers, fake news. Like, just so depressing. But Ross, like, wrote this entire book where he's a cursed child. He was a cursed Damien child, and he goes to Yale and freaks out when he doesn't have to wear
Yale. They went on the road trip.
Or Harvard, when he said Harvard, and, like, he doesn't have to put on a condom. He gets molested by William Buckley. There's, like, it's like the movie Sideways.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. But the rest of the people on this list, they're just the lowest. They're lower. Like, Chivers have significantly more personality than any of these fucking media
I'm not
cretins.
drinking any of Buckley's cum.
Getting my ass fingered on a yacht. That's just fucking great.
Right.
No, he goes, I can't condemn McCain's choice of Palin because I sort of urged it upon him at the time. She was chosen to be something other than what she turned out to be on the basis of a record that implied strengths she turned out to lack.
She was a governor of, like, a state that's just a fucking oil pipeline and just the world's largest TGI Fridays, and you're gonna fucking for 2 years, and you're like, yep, she's gonna do it.
Yeah, the state of Alaska has, like, a naturally occurring Avengers flat brim hat on top of it.
The best thing to be said about McCain's record is that he took being a senator seriously. He appreciated the powers of his office.
What does that mean?
Again, I don't know what that means.
He sat behind his desk.
Yeah.
He went like, choo choo.
Yeah, it's like, what is it like? What were there just like are there like 90 other senators who are just fuck off senators who are just like, oh damn, I forgot to go to work today.
Sherrod Brown shows up in board shorts.
Yeah. Like going down the halls of the Senate on a longboard.
Yeah,
Radical.
Like, oh, dude, I've accidentally been going to the agriculture building for 7 years. Fuck, I'm up for re-election. I forgot.
So he goes, he appreciated the powers of his office and tried to exploit them to the hilt for his conception of the common good. Not something you can say of many of his colleagues.
And he goes on to go, I cannot find the link, but Ramesh Ponnuru wrote a piece back in 2007, 2008 about McCain's politics of honor that I think was one of the best measures of the man. He was our most Roman legislator, for good or ill or both. That's Pizzagate.
Yeah.
He's talking about Pizzagate.
Yeah, I was about to say Mark Foley was their most Roman legislator.
I mean, I think his record shows McCain probably would have loved to have owned slaves if they'd given him the option.
But Ev, Agent Napoleon, pointed this out. Actually, calling him our most Roman senator is actually very befitting of him. Son of a big military man who, took that position seriously to also engage in imperial warfare, slaughtering entire populations of people who are, resisting our giant imperial death machine.
To bring Cathay under our heel.
Didn't do a very good job of even doing that, if we're going to be honest.
He sucked.
He sucked shit at that. And then, went into a career in politics where he talked endlessly about honor and service, but basically only was motivated by self-aggrandizement.
Yep.
So that sounds
pretty tidy, yeah.
Pretty Roman to me.
Also, he got that Emperor Vitellius neck waddle.
So that's Ross Douthat. One last thing for us here today. And, again, we will all miss the Weekly Standard so much. But who will miss more than the Weekly Standard? Being ruled by WASPs. The white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, folks, are just genetically predisposed to be our benevolent rulers. But with George H.W. Bush, he was the last WASP.
It's so
it was
hard.
He was like the last African white rhino.
Yeah.
He was the last WASP, and now there are no more.
Yeah.
And we're gonna miss them, guys.
And like a white African rhino, he was killed by Donald Trump Jr.
I'm speaking, of course, about Ross Douthat. We haven't checked in with Ross in a long time.
You know what? I've always said about Ross, because I miss him.
Of course.
I feel the way about Ross Douthat, the way that Dana White feels about, MMA fighters who aren't that good, but sort of lose or win in spectacular, exciting fashion. Ross may not be the best, but he leaves it all out there.
We haven't done a Ross column in a while, so, I think this is a treat for you guys. Ross started out as a major character for us, and I think it's time to bring him back with his opinion piece to the New York Times, Why We Miss the WASPs. Their more meritocratic, diverse, and secular successors rule us neither as wisely nor as well.
Diverse. So he's just complaining that there aren't as many white people in the ruling class anymore.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
Well, as we know from Ross's book about Harvard, Asians, they may be smart,
they're weird,
but they're very cliquish and inscrutable.
It's very Deadwood, yeah.
It's very hard.
These Celestials.
It's like when we're ruled by the meritocratic Asians, because they're the best at taking tests and doing math and whatnot. When we're ruled by the Asian ruling class, they may be competent, but again, it's very hard to scrute.
Yeah.
What do they want from us?
This eternal mystery.
Damn, I try to screw this shit and I can't. I just love that it's like a cut scene of Steve from Deadwood.
Yeah.
These are in their clique and they won't let a Harvard man.
So this is what Ross Douthat has to say in defense of our WASP ruling class. The good old days in America.
Yeah.
We just came from Princeton. Wasn't it better?
Oh my God! Yes.
Everyone, like the graduating class of Princeton, Harvard, and Yale.
When we were ruled by the Dulles brothers, the Niles and Fraser Crane of
war crimes,
military-industrial complex.
We used to be ruled by a different type of cousin guy. It was, you would be like, instead of, my cousin fucked Betty Page, it was like, oh, my cousin knocked over 3 governments in Latin America for a fruit company. But you were telling the truth.
The WASP cousin guys were just guys that fucked their cousins.
Yo, no shit. Me and my cousin came all over each other. We don't even need a woman.
Okay, so this is what Ross says. The nostalgia flowing since the passing of George H.W. Bush has many wellsprings. Admiration for the World War II generation and its dying breed of warrior politicians.
I love warrior politicians. Oh, yeah. Just a bunch of William Wallaces.
Yeah, I think of warriors. I think of fucking George H.W. Bush.
The usual belated media affection for moderate Republicans. The contrast between the elder Bush's foreign policy successes and the failures of his son. And the contrast between any honorable politician and the current occupant of the Oval Office.
All right, for the beginning, we can just this is one of those ones where you just destroy it out of the gate because he says we, and he never defines that, and he's talking, whoa, all these outpourings. Who? It's all the media.
Well,
the media are the only people who give a shit about this.
Well, I think the funny thing to point out is that Ross Douthat is 100% a WASP.
Well, yeah, he is.
I don't take his religious.
He's very proud of it.
Well, I mean, he has his phony religious conversion to his Catholicism, which is like, that's his one, check mark against it. But I don't really take that seriously. So he's just like, it was better when people like me from Connecticut ran the country.
Yeah, no, he's dressing it in the idea that he's commenting on this national wellspring of nostalgia, which, I'm sorry, entirely the media, maybe like a third of Democratic voters, because they are on that civility shit and they are so traumatized by Trump that they want any Republican they can kind of grasp onto and think this person's better than Trump. So that's true. But I'd say the majority of Democratic voters are lukewarm to disdainful of him. Obviously, people who don't vote don't give a fuck who that guy was. Who's that fucking grandpa, that old bitch? And then half of the fucking Republican base thinks that he killed Kennedy.
Well, he probably did.
I mean, George H.W. Bush, you may not respect him for, being a moderate. It's never good to be a moderate in anything, bitch ass. World War II, what kind of chump fights another man's war? Kids suck, losers. But he capped his enemies and he moved coke. So he's a baller.
Wait,
you have to respect. He was the greatest coke trafficker in American history.
He had that yaya.
Freeway HW.
Yeah, he was. He was Freeway's plug.
Yeah.
He's the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
Why
undefeated?
Why we missed the plug? Damn, I missed the plug.
Greatest. I mean, everyone made fun of Navy Pier in Chicago for putting a big dumb picture of his old head on our stupid Ferris wheel, but I think it's actually pretty cool for Chicago to officially honor the greatest coke trafficker in American history.
But two of the more critical takes on Bush nostalgia got closer to the heart of what was being mourned in distant hindsight with his death. Writing in The Atlantic, Peter Beinart described the elder Bush as the last president deemed legitimate by both our country's warring tribes, before the age of presidential sex scandals, plurality winning and popular vote losing chief executives, and white resentment of the first black president. Didn't George H.W. Bush cheat on Barbara all the time?
He was a huge horn dog.
He was a coxman.
He was a massive cheater all the time. In fact, it came out during I believe the 88 campaign, but it just never caught any kind of larger thing because you didn't have somebody like Jennifer Flowers who was giving interviews or something. But he was absolutely a known cheater to the Washington press corps. And of course, talk about racial resentment. Fucking Willie Horton had. Him and Lee Atwater ran an explicitly racist campaign in 1988.
Also, in The Atlantic, Franklin Four. Franklin Four.
Just a motherfucker wrote an article in the New York Times basically to respond to Peter Beinart and Franklin Four. What? This is the most.
Okay, I'm just gonna call him.
What? This isn't exciting.
I'm gonna call him Franklin.
It's just what are we doing? What are we doing?
I'm calling him Franklin Hooer. Franklin Hooer described the
He's more like Franklin 8, if you feel me.
Franklin Four, what? New Republic, right? Is he still the New Republic?
No, The Atlantic.
Oh, The Atlantic. Okay.
It's literally the same thing.
It's all the same money laundering operation for the fucking Church of Scientology and the fucking Qatari royal family.
Described the subtext of Bush nostalgia as a fondness for a bygone institution known as the establishment. Hardened.
Who?
Them.
I mean, but who is having this bygone nostalgia?
Me?
Name names.
Felix.
Me. I am, dude.
Felix.
Give me something other than these fucking preppy dickheads.
Dude, I'm sad.
Can I just describe the establishment how Franklin Hooer describes them? The establishment are people who are hardened in the cold New England boarding school.
No, dude. Stop it. You can't use that word.
Yo, my man literally said they got hard in New England boarding schools.
They were ritually molested. That's what he means.
I got dumb brain at Exeter.
No, he means they got ritually molested. It's the same. They imported the British ruling class style.
I don't know how much identically they Andover and Exeter copied exactly the British boarding school system, but they also said acculturated by the late night rituals of Skull and Bones, sent off to the world with a sense of noblesse oblige.
All
which
right,
literally
my friends have jacked off on me enough, and now I feel honored to serve the
He's
world.
talking about a childhood of separation from your family and ritual humiliation by your peers. And that's supposed to make you a good leader and not a lizard-brained psychopath?
And that's how you overthrow the Arbenz for the United Fruit Company.
Mossadegh? Yeah. I was thinking of Geronimo's skull when we overthrew Mossadegh.
Put simply, Americans miss Bush because we miss the WASPs.
Once again, no. Every time he says that, I say, fuck you. Who says we miss him?
Who suggests that this nostalgia is mostly bunk, since the WASPs were often bigots, since their cultivation of noblesse oblige was really about preserving a place at the high table of American life, and since so many of their virtues are superficial, a matter of dressing nicely while practicing imperialism or writing lovely thank you notes while they outsource the dirty work of politics to race-baiting operatives.
Correct.
However, one of the lessons of the age of meritocracy is that building a more democratic and inclusive ruling class is harder than it looks, and even perhaps a contradiction in terms.
You think?
How about we just get rid of the ruling class and replace it with another class?
I don't
Maybe a working class of
I don't
some
know.
kind?
There's like a different class that could be in charge, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure.
You can get rid of the social registers and let women into your secret societies and privilege SATs over recommendations from the rector of Justin. And,
Which, by the way, they have not done. These motherfuckers
and the
are
headmaster
still,
of St. Grottlesex.
These guys are still the ones who get into these schools anyway.
And George Bush did go to Harvard.
Yeah.
And you still end up with something that is clearly a self-replicating upper class, a powerful elite filling your schools and running your public institutions.
Yeah.
Weird how that works.
I know.
If only there was some sort of
God.
thinker that sort of described how a
situation.
class-based system of power works and replicates itself such that it actually doesn't matter if it's a WASP in charge or some sort of, weirdo Catholic convert.
Yeah. Sort of like how all class societies are a dictatorship of one class over the other. And ours is one where, what are they called? Starts with a B. They're the ones. And they are a class dictatorship. And that expresses itself in economics and then somehow also in the political class.
We're talking about Jay Sakai, right?
Yeah.
That's the author?
Yeah. Google Settlers.
So, if some of Elder Bush's mourners wish we still had a WASP establishment, their desire probably reflects a belated realization that certain of the old establishment's vices were inherent to any elite, that meritocracy creates its own forms of exclusion, and that the WASPs had virtues that their successors have failed to inherit or revive. Those virtues included, again, the spirit of noblesse oblige and a personal austerity and piety that went beyond the thank you notes and boat shoes and prep school chapel going. No, it didn't.
Wrong.
It absolutely did not.
Where is his citation, motherfucker? Citation needed. When you're putting your cigar out on your fucking saddle boy's fucking forehead.
A spirit that trained the most privileged children for service, not just success, that sent men like Bush into combat alongside the sons of farmers and mechanics in the same way. He was a fucking Air Force officer. He was not alongside the sons of farmers
He was
and
not.
mechanics.
And he picked it because he thought it would be a great adventure.
He said the Knights of the Sky.
The Knights of the Sky.
Yeah.
It was a fun lark for a blue blood shithead.
To be fair, a lot of them did die. The death rate
Not
for
enough.
those pilots. Yeah, exactly. Not enough of the officer class of the Western powers died in World War II.
That's absolutely true. No question.
Blah, blah, blah. The WASP virtues also included a cosmopolitanism that was often more authentic than our own performative variety, a cosmopolitanism that coexisted with white man's burden racism, but also sometimes transcended it. Again, when?
You're just saying it.
Because
Just
for every
saying shit.
Brahmin bigot, there was an Arabist or China hand or Hispanophile. Well, there was another
What's
kind of... there was another one of those files. as well.
Another file.
There's another file.
Wait a
for-
minute. So he's saying that, they weren't racist. They were things like Arabists. Yeah. You mean those freaks who would just wear a turban and put phyllo dough on their dick and fuck somebody on a Turkish rug?
Oh, dude, you think I'm racist? I literally only pay 13-year-olds of this specific ethnicity to go pee-pee on me in a tent.
He goes, they understood the non-American world better than some of today's shallow multiculturalists. So Ross is like,
Have you ever been pissed on, buddy?
He's literally talking about a Lawrence of Arabia figure, like a guy who's administering imperialism and put a fucking started dressing like a Bedouin.
Yeah,
and he actually understood their culture a lot better than a lot of these woke people today
SJWs.
who actually won't fuck a teenage boy.
Yeah, I mean,
Have you ever paid an Iranian bodybuilder to do a riot so you could overthrow their president?
Excuse me. Have you ever had Latin 10th generation syphilis that breaks when you're 25 and you just walk around in an outfit and going, I fancy myself a son of Siam? Does that ever happen to you? You can study as much as you want, but until you do that, dude.
What were their fucking accomplishments? What did this worldliness accomplish? Coups and dictatorships that have created every fucking problem we have now that he's bemoaning our current elite can't handle. They're all legacies of these motherfuckers from the Central American dictatorships that have given birth to the dreaded caravan and immigrant issues, to the Middle East being turned into just a giant fucking war zone. That's all their fucking doing. They were the ones who bequeathed all of this to us.
So like Ross talks about, some of the problems in, WASP habits or whatever, but here's where we really enter his mind palace. And he goes, it's possible to imagine adaptation rather than surrender as a different WASP strategy across the 60s and 70s. In such a world, the establishment would still have admitted more blacks, Jews, Catholics, and Hispanics, and more women to its ranks, but it would have done so as a self-consciously elite crafting strategy. Dude, I love when I'm crafting elites. When I like acquire items to craft a new Hispanic Jewish elite that still has plus WASP 10 noblesse oblige stats.
God damn, the Japanese Indian elite is the hardest item to find in the game.
So wait a minute.
Complete so many quests.
So basically, he's saying the problem is that not enough people from different backgrounds were brought to these institutions as kids to have their bare asses paddled with a plank from Nathan Hale's Gallows.
Whoa, I'm a fucking Arabist over here. I'm getting the fucking pee-pee on me from all these 13-year-old Bedouin boys. It's like bada bing, I give him the coin, bada boom. I'm covered in child urine. Yeah, I have inbreeding caused mental illness.
At the same time, it would have retained both its historic religious faith instead of exchanging Protestant rigor for a post-Christian social gospel and soft pantheism. Again, this is just all of Ross's own fucking like boogeymen that like the elite now.
Fucking pantheists. I'm just
there's nobody is a fucking.
I'm fucking sick of seeing Kamala Harris praying to the fucking snow god.
This is
every December 1st.
This is like Alex Jones shit. This is they're worshiping Baal. Shut up, dude.
Oh my god, I got invited to the DCCC's Walpurgisnacht party. It fucking sucks.
Oh my god, I have to meet Tom Perez at Stonehenge.
So he's saying like he's doing a character build where you could like trade WASP DNA for WASP social characteristics like Protestant rigor and their self-denying culture, which is just like, again, like that's where you shake, Felix, like you said, you shake your wife's hand on your wedding night and then don't talk to her or make eye contact for 30 years and you lose your lips actually are surgically removed from your skull and that you just sort of drink gin and pee blood for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's good, dude. It's good. It makes you a good person.
And he goes, the goal would have been to keep piety and discipline embedded in the culture of a place like Harvard, rather than the mix of performative self-righteousness and raw ambition that replaced them. Ross, you wrote a book about your time at Harvard that was all about your performative self-righteousness and raw ambition.
He is quoted as saying he wants to be America's richest writer when he was going to Harvard.
And I'm sorry, what is all his religious bullshit if not performative self-righteousness?
Yeah, that's every column of his.
Such an effort might also have had a spillover effect on politics. It's de rigueur for liberals to lament the decline of the Rockefeller Republicans, or the compromises that moderate Northeastern WASP like George H.W. Bush made with Sunbelt populism. But a WASP establishment that couldn't muster the self-confidence to hold on to Harvard and Yale was never likely to maintain its hold on a mass political organization like the GOP. Whereas an establishment that still believed in its mission within its own ivied bastions might have been seen as a more politically imposing in the wider world, instead of seeing its last paladin, a war hero and statesman in a grand American tradition, dismissed in the boomer era as a wimp.
That is absolute pharmaceutical grade gibberish. He is saying that the rise of the populist right that started in the 60s with Goldwater would have somehow been stopped if there'd been sort of a hybrid vigor infused WASP establishment to fight it. I can't even form words at this point. I mean, what do you think politics is? Like, what do you really think is the driving factor? Is it there's no place in any of this for just the material reality of like the shifts of American the economy and where power flowed with the rise of the energy economy of Texas or whatever, the way that shifted financial influence from the East Coast financiers to the West. Like, that has nothing to do with how many people in DC can lift their fucking pinky finger when they're drinking tea. I mean, these are titanic material shifts, and that is what determines the political superstructure. He has this perfectly inverted understanding of politics, where it's just the need for WASPs to be imposing enough would keep the rest of us rabble in line.
I mean, I think the entire point of this column is that it's just like a giant what if scenario. That what if when I went to college, it was still cool to be a WASP, and I was as successful as Mark Zuckerberg by channeling all of my college age anxieties into something other than some weird religious mania and New York Times columns.
Yeah, instead of part of the pantheistic, sun worshipping, multicultural elites we got at the Ivy League, Ross could have been accepted by the WASP, and he could have been next Zuckerberg, except he makes Tinder that connects 28-year-old virgins to 13-year-old boys in Western Asia, as it is now called.
Or what if, hear me out now, what if the neoliberal turn hadn't happened and just atomized and dissolved all social bonds and radical and made politics vastly more populist because people were much more desperate through basically all strata of society except for his precious little grouping. Ugh, Jesus fucking Christ.
What if there's a special type of white person that wore 17 layers to have afternoon gin with his wife and has sex with her once, and it produces 7 awful kids all named Neil?
I mean, he goes on to, he's just saying we should learn from the best things of the WASPs, which was, all of the democratic governments that they overturned and all the incest and repression that they
it's
also
amazing
did.
that he can't muster a single example in that entire article about what actually was good about them being in charge, other than just broad values.
What he means is what was good about them being in charge is that they reflected things that Ross likes to see, which is never enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
And being sort of austere in both personality and repressed lunatic.
Yeah.
While you're, like I said, overthrowing democratic governments all over the world. He goes on to quote an essay from something called the Hedgehog Review, which I'm not going to read, but he just says, if we would learn from their lost successes in our own era of misrule, reconsidering, again, what were their successes? I'm not clear from reading this article.
Single example.
Reconsidering this idea that a ruling class should acknowledge itself for what it really is and act accordingly might be a fruitful place to start. I think a fruitful place to start would be recognizing who the ruling class is and getting rid of them entirely.
Well, that's the thing, and that's what's always frustrating about Douthat columns, is because he's pointing out that there is a real contradiction there, and that the diversity solution to the perceived problem of a out of touch ruling class is in fact not one, because you're just replacing one ruling class with another, and that the contradictions are still there, and that as long as and especially in an era when material conditions are deteriorating and where politics has basically stopped any pretense of being able to control the economic destinies of people, we're basically throwing our hands up and said, look, we'll be your rulers, but we can't actually make anything better. Everything's to the markets to decide. Sorry about that. That is an unsustainable situation, and that's going to get swept away. And he kind of has this vague understanding that that's the case, but because he is a fucking deluded dipshit, he just can't grasp it. So instead he's like, well, what if we just went back in time and had made sure, killed Jeb Bush and replaced him with a more competent version of himself so that he could have beaten Trump in 2016, and then everything would be okay.
I mean, I think it just comes down to Ross is a WASP, but he'll never really be a part of them. But he wants he views himself as an outsider because of his weird religious mania. But he still wants to be part of. He wants to fuck Geronimo's skull.
Well, the thing is that he probably fucking affects that Catholicism partially to create an aura of being an outsider, because that gives him that's a it's self-regarding, because to be sort of part of this elite, you're a fucking Wodehouse character, but if you have some weird thing off, you don't want to be Gatsby, you want to be Nick Carraway, right? And that he gets to be part of it, but also have self-awareness and a separation from it and an irony that makes him more interesting than just these boring wasps.
It's almost like a shallow, I don't know, what's the form of politics that's like based on who you are,
Right,
or
yeah.
like something like your
Yeah.
driver's license, your
Right, yeah.
ID,
ID, yeah.
yeah, your identity,
Identity politics. That's what it is. Yeah, identity politics. Meanwhile, I would rather be ruled by literal, actual wasps. Right? Giant interdimensional space wasps that had us all work in the sugar caves than these motherfuckers again.
I would rather have that wasp from Mandy sting my neck after LSD is dropped into my eyes.
Well, yeah, that just looked like fun.
Actually, that looked pretty dope,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to be doing every time Ross Douthat writes a column.
Yeah. Just
So
right in the neck.
always good to check in on Ross again. And so, like I said, we're here in LA with Hasan. Things are going great in the news, though. We've so we're sort of insulated it from, because we're cool California vibes. Everyone is chill out here, but the news sucks. Things coming out pretty bad. Where do you want to start? Our upcoming war with Iran, or our upcoming abortion being illegal in the United States?
Neither of those are very Marianne.
Well,
Let's start with abortion.
Okay, let's start. So, Alabama has now joined Georgia as the latest state to pass a.
Ohio did it too. They're all in a contest to see what state's name will be in the name of the historic Supreme Court decision overturning Roe versus Wade. They want it to be Smith versus Alabama, not Smith versus Ohio or whatever the fuck.
So
they're clout chasers.
They literally are. This is
Yeah,
all about
true.
chasing clout. That's 100% correct.
This cloud shit's funny, dude.
Yeah,
it's funny.
It's like, it's so not me.
Yeah.
Last night, though, at the movie premiere, I was just thinking there are so many fake LA bitches here, and this so is me. I can't wait to become one.
Bring me another canapé.
So, just the Alabama, you probably already know about the Georgia one. Just real quick here, reading from the New York Times, a write-up of this, just says, what does Alabama do? The bill that the Republican-controlled legislature overwhelmingly passed sought to prohibit abortions at every stage of pregnancy. It includes an exemption in cases for cases where a woman's health is at serious risk, but lawmakers rejected a proposal to add exceptions for cases of rape or incest. Women who have abortions will not be prosecuted under the measure, but if the courts allow the law to stand, doctors could be charged with a felony and face up to 99 years in prison for performing the procedure. So they're withholding the death penalty.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, very enlightened.
I guess how many doctors that perform abortions do you think are left in this state though?
In Alabama?
Yeah.
Very,
because
very few.
This sounds like it's a little misleading, and not that this isn't terrible, but every time one of these things happens, it's generally in a state where like the only providers is like the one Planned Parenthood or one doctor with like bulletproof, windows. The issue, first of all, Roe v. Wade is not good legal precedent to defend the right to abortion. Second of all, in addition to like a firmer legal defense, like we're not going to ever have secure access to abortion without socialized healthcare. We're just not. And we can't rely on Planned Parenthood because God bless them. They certainly helped me out in a pinch, but like they do not have the long game in mind. They are truly a liberal institution with extreme limits. They're not good at defending abortion.
They are being attacked though, because it's sort of like, I feel like you sort of forget how much the anti-abortion people, like what kind of freaks they really are, but they're feeling it. They're feeling themselves now for sure, and they're sharing some very normal thoughts. I just capped this one courtesy of wet-faced, fish-lipped freak Matt Walsh, who says of the new law, if a 12-year-old is raped by her father and the father takes her to get an abortion, the evidence of the crime will be destroyed and he will go on molesting his victim for years. If, however, the child is born, his crime will be discovered and she will be rescued from the abuse. So all she has to do is bear her father's child.
Let your rape baby be your savior.
Wait, I don't understand. So, like, hey, Matt Walsh is a father, right? Because he talks about being a father all the time. But this man is obviously never fucked. Because, like, if this is your perspective, like, do you genuinely think that the only way to prove that someone raped you is if you carry the pregnancy to term at the age of 12?
Well, you have to wait until the kid looks enough like you to be prosecuted.
Like, his children are the only way he can prove to other people that he's had sex. So that's the terms he's thinking in.
Yeah, like there's absolutely no other evidence, forensic or otherwise, that you could ever use to prosecute.
Certainly
a rape.
not a testimony from a woman.
That's why the rape kit backlog exists, because like these people got abortions. So that's why there's a backlog and they can't test them anymore because there's no children. There's no proof.
Well, Matt Walsh seems to think that Planned Parenthood's main goal is covering up crimes.
Yeah.
Like there's just sort of like Harvey Keitel's character in Pulp Fiction.
Essentially, so much cooler than they are.
Well, so it says
here, if they were like actually doing that, if they were, in the dead of night, running some sort of like black market abortion access thing, it would legitimately be far more impressive than the fight that they're able to put up at this point.
The right wing claims that they sell the baby organs
to make Impossible Burgers.
Yes. No, that's not a joke.
That's not a joke.
That is a conspiracy.
Oh yeah, I think it was Azalea Banks said that.
Like, it's up there with the Pepsi has stem cells in it.
Well, it doesn't make it taste any better.
Yeah,
no,
Diet
whatever they're
Coke
putting
is
in
still
Coke.
much better.
I'm sipping this Diet Coke right now.
Yeah.
I can't drink Pepsi. It's awful.
Bad.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're pro-life, so you can't you can't launder your conscience that easily. Just to finish up, the New York Times goes on to say, a Senate vote on Tuesday night moved the proposal to Governor Kay Ivey, a Republican who signed the legislation on Wednesday afternoon. To the bill's many supporters, this legislation stands as a powerful testament to Alabamians' deeply held belief that every life is precious and that every life is a sacred gift from God, Ms. Ivey said in a statement. I mean, I know that you can say that, but for states like Alabama and Georgia to say it's a deeply held belief of this state that every life is sacred and precious, it's just like, could you do a better job of showing that, maybe? Yeah. Because these states do have the highest maternal and infant mortality rates in America.
Yeah, once you take it to term, then it's your problem. I don't know. I don't know how we're going to actually deal with this. I hope that this is like wrapped up and smashed down really tidy, because if it gets drawn out, people will pay attention to nothing but this. I do not put it past Republicans to like try to drum up so-called culture wars at the last minute to distract people from the fact that like suddenly like Medicare for All is an incredibly popular policy and people are getting behind education, anti-poverty initiatives. I think that they could very easily just keep pulling this shit well into the election so that we pay attention to that to the exclusion of all other things and everyone runs out of energy.
Don't you guys think this is kind of a losing battle in some sense? Because I mean, culture wars, Republicans are really good at it. We all already know this, but abortion is like that one issue that definitely mobilizes a significant portion of the Republican base, but it's still not something that I don't know. I feel like it's not as popular as Republicans make it out to be.
Like in terms of the prospect of making abortion illegal or overturning Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, I don't think people are as extremely. But also, like we've lost so much. The Democrats have lost so much political footing that I think it's very easy. And again, these laws are awful and they shouldn't exist, and we need better, legal precedent than Roe v. Wade. But also, the biggest issue is that no one can afford health care of any kind, and that it's incredibly difficult to access any of this stuff. I mean, the number of doctors that even perform abortions at this point is so low in America, and it's been steadily dropping ever since, just because it's not worth it. Like they can't rationalize the risk to it. They can't find a place to fucking work. Like Planned Parenthood can barely keep its head above water, in terms of keeping clinics. And then everything else is just death by 1,000 cuts. It's like, it's austerity anti-abortion activism, like, which is probably more effective at this point than the legal stuff.
I did see, in terms of other normal people sharing their normal thoughts, Ross Douthat today, big time anti-abortion,
Big Boss Ross.
big boss Ross. He seemed to be making the case that like you can't say that women's full political equality is depends on abortion because there are other countries in the West that made abortion illegal after Roe v. Wade, and women were fine in those countries. And the examples he used were Ireland and Chile. And Ireland, it was
he
like
really likes those, the mass grave countries.
Yeah.
Big fan of those.
Yeah.
Ireland, where you go to jail if you fly over to like the UK.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, but not even. Yeah.
Very
in
recently.
fucking Ireland.
Yeah.
very, very recently, but the
land of Magdalene laundries.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, women's, like full political and economic enfranchisement. And by the way, in the Chile, anti-abortion was instituted by Pinochet, by a right-wing dictatorship.
Yeah.
Just misunderstood. You hate people of color if you shit on Pinochet. Sorry, I have to say it.
We hate people of color. We hate Pinochet. We hate the Irish. Yeah.
Well, actually, let's move to our boy Bernard and another section on the New York Times, checking in on our good boy Freeway Ross Douthat, who comes out this week with his case for Bernie.
All right.
Yes? Yeah.
What's the trick
what's
here?
he playing at here?
What's the sneaky little fuck
What's
up to?
the catch here? So Ross, in his New York Times opinion column, presents his case for Bernie Sanders. Now, I will, of course, never give Ross credit for anything.
Of course
and
not.
then I think as we go through, I have a theory about what he's really doing here. But what is interesting about this piece is that out of anyone who works for the New York Times, and I'm including their political reporters and the op-ed people, in this column is the first time I've read in the New York Times any kind of like what approaches like not opinion, but just an accurate accounting of like the facts about Bernie Sanders and his campaign that I have never encountered anywhere else in the Times.
Yeah.
Because liberal hegemony is tight.
Oh, yeah.
And because he's a weird conservative, he could be like, I don't know, I think I'll write this today.
So I mean, like I'm gonna skip the beginning. Like he talks about like he goes through the Kamala Harris and why that doesn't work, and like why the Democrats are still looking for like someone to coalesce around. And he goes here. There's an interesting case that the candidate best positioned to do this, the one whose support is the most diverse right now, is the candidate whom Obama allegedly promised to intervene against if his nomination seemed likely, the resilient socialist from Vermont, Bernie Sanders. And Ross does use the word resilient, which is honestly, Bernie at every level
he's
has
solid
just
as a
stayed
rock.
just
He's a
like the little
scrapper.
engine that could.
He never budged. He never changed.
He hasn't moved. And
the polls,
campaign
yeah.
is staying where it is.
He hasn't changed his message. His support has remained consistent in about the
For liberals, that's a mistake.
Yeah. So he goes here, like other candidates, Sanders' support has a demographic core. Just as Elizabeth Warren depends on very liberal professionals and Joe Biden on older minorities and moderates, correct.
Yeah.
Bernie depends intensely on the young, but his polling also shows an interesting better than you expect pattern given stereotypes about his support. He does better than you expect with minorities despite having struggled with them in 2016, with moderate voters and 100K plus earners despite being famously left-wing, and with young women despite all the Bernie bro business.
Always the case.
This pattern explains why, in early state polling, Sanders shows the most strength in very different environments, leading Warren everywhere in the latest 538 average. Again, I love that little dig at Nate Silver.
Yeah, fuck you,
Who
motherfucker.
fucking has tried over and over and over again to invent any reason. Like Real Clear Politics, like just 2 weeks ago, like they're the ones who do the aggregate of all the polls. And like they're the ones that like they put everything to like just overall who is leading in the like 2 weeks ago, Sanders got back into the number 2 spot over Warren. Nate Silver had this whole lengthy thread about like, well, if you look at our modeling,
It doesn't really indicate
like it's just.
that.
So again, according to the latest 538 average, beating Biden in Iowa, challenging him in more diverse Nevada, matching Buttigieg in New Hampshire, and leading him easily in South Carolina and California.
Yes.
Now, I have stacked the argument slightly and left out a crucial axis of division where Sanders does worse than you expect. He struggles badly with his fellow Social Security recipients, the over 65.
These old fucks.
This weakness
Yeah, well, old people also hate people who remind them of themselves. 'cause they're full
Exactly,
of regret.
yes.
And they also have more money because
Yeah.
if they're old and you are still alive, it's because you have money.
One of the polls I did actually kind of want to look at was, and I don't know if they have this information, but like comparing senior support for Bernie in states ranked by senior poverty levels. Because like, so Indiana, for example, we have the most poor old people. We just
That's
don't
on your
even
license
care.
plates.
We just throw them out in the woods when we're done with them. You're not useful anymore, Grandma.
Indiana, number one in leading cause of death, exposure.
Pretty much. No, by the way, since we're going to be in the UK, Matt, I suggest you watch some television because they have these lovely commercials about like, loneliness is really tough for older people around the holidays. And I found this hilarious because I'm like, we just let them die. But anyway, yeah.
If you're cold, they're cold. Bring your grandfather inside for Christmas.
I really
at least.
bet like it's also ranked by wealth, and because like there are a lot of poor older people too.
So he goes, this weakness and Biden's strength of the same voters are obvious reasons to doubt the case for Bernie as the unifier, Bernie as the eventual nominee, especially since Sanders has thus far ignored my advice. I know, the nerve, that he reassures skeptics by telling them that he has a record as a deal maker, that he can moderate on certain issues so they can feel safe supporting him, even if they aren't ready for the revolution.
That literally the only reason we like him is that he doesn't do that.
But still, Ross continues, if you are a wavering Democrat concerned about both party unity and ultimate electability, about exciting all the diverse factions of your base while also competing for the disaffected, both the relative breadth of Bernie's primary coalition and his decent polling among non-voters and Obama-Trump voters, are reasons to give him another look. The decent polling, I suspect, reflects a sense among voters drawn to populism that Bernie is different from not only the more centrist candidates, latecomers Michael Bloomberg and Deval Patrick especially, but Buttigieg as well, but also from his fellow left-winger Warren, who has fully embraced the culture war breadth of the new progressivism, while Sanders remains fundamentally an economic policy monomaniac. Now, here is where like Ross's explanation of this does get into, I think, a little bit of the trickery that he's doing here, because as a New York Times columnist, he knows that he's writing for an audience largely of Warren and Buttigieg supporters. So he does this little turn at the end where he basically says, my case for Bernie, he gets here, he's still a social liberal, of course, and he isn't in the culturally conservative economic populist quadrant where so many underrepresented voters reside, but for the kind of American who is mostly with the Democrats on economics, but wary of progressivism's zest for the culture war, Sanders' socialism might be strangely reassuring, as a signal of what he actually cares about and what battles he might eschew for the sake of his anti-plutocratic goals. At the least, he's no more radical on an issue like abortion than a studied moderate like Mayor Pete. This is why, despite technically preferring a moderate like Biden or Amy Klobuchar, I keep coming back to the conservatives' case for Bernie, which rests on the perhaps wrong but still attractive supposition that he's the liberal most likely to spend all his time trying to tax the rich and leave cultural conservatives alone.
I'm sorry, Douthat's right.
What I interpret by Douthat here is that this is his way.
You don't want to give him an inch, I know.
Of course,
but
I will
he's
never.
right.
No. This is his way of sticking the knife in and assuring the people he knows who actually read him and take him seriously that this is he's giving them a reason not to vote for Bernie, which is like he's implying that he's a squish on abortion or gay rights or any of the social issues, which I don't think he is at all.
And none of his readers were going to vote for Bernie anyway.
Exactly. But also this idea that like, he will leave cultural conservatives alone. What the fuck would that look like?
Well,
to people like
no,
Ross?
he doesn't run a culture war campaign.
That's true.
Which is a good idea.
But that implies that if he doesn't, that Republicans won't. Like they're going to have even more of an incentive to push culture war stuff if Bernie's the nominee.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's completely fine. I mean, the left allegedly won the culture war. Give it to the right. I don't care. Let them like have their own TV. Oh wait, they have a few TV stations. I don't give a shit. Let them, have their dumb bullshit, their dumb, fucking media bullshit. It doesn't do anything. We control, the media now, and we don't have any power. I think that doing a culture war lead on economic issues has failed us over and over again, and it is also specifically produced policies and institutions that are focused on culture war with no economic basis.
For the Ross Douthats of the world, like if Bernie had like a purely like policy-based approach to like healthcare, of which like abortion was like absolutely a major, just accepted as a de facto
We're
part
still
of
going to
healthcare.
fight right-wingers,
But, like,
but
Ross
we
would-
don't also need to alienate people who are going to start assuming that you're dumb libs.
But Ross would like by definition like perceive that as antagonizing cultural conservatives.
Yeah, well,
It's like,
we're
I just
not
think-
trying to win, Ross.
Well, actually, like, but I'm saying is like that's what, like, there's no winning with fucking Ross Douthat. I guess this is what I'm saying. I don't like my take on this thing is I think it's funny that in this piece he, because he's a right winger playing to a liberal audience, has managed to smuggle in a few of the only like actually factually accurate descriptions of, let's say, Bernie's campaign and who supports him, as opposed to the other Democrats. But overall, like he's not thrilled about the idea of Bernie Sanders being president, and I think he's couching it in this terms that basically implies that Sanders is a squish on social issues to signal to his liberal readership not to vote for him. That's my take on what Ross is doing.
I think
with
that's
this
entirely
article.
possible, but I don't think anyone who's like, ooh, got to read Ross today is going to be swayed by this because he's a little shitty snake. But he's not wrong about this.
Last question and topic for today. Do y'all like sex?
Nah.
No.
Okay.
Nah,
Well,
not really.
Okay. Well, you were clearly now firmly in the mainstream of the American
That's
public.
on trend. Being sex negative is on trend.
It's, is anyone having sex anymore? This is a question that's come up recently. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw that graph posted yesterday, but it basically purported to show that since 2008, there's been a huge increase in the number of men under 30 who have never had a sex partner or a female sexual partner. So I don't know if that counts
Excuse
guys
you.
who are gay, but I mean, that could be throwing off the numbers. But the point is, for lack of a better word, the rise of the incel. I mean, this is a topic we've talked about before.
The research was just a guy saying, fellas, y'all like sex, and everyone's saying no.
But, this is a question people are beginning to get concerned about is like, are Americans having enough sex? Are people just sort of withdrawing from pursuing sex? Or like, are among young men in particular, like, is America post-COVID, post-everything, like headed for kind of a hikikomori, like Japanese style, like where it's just like population is declining, no one is having sex, like no one is reproducing, there's just no...
Because it's not just about people not having sex, right? It's about sex as a normal part, in their minds, as a normal part leading to reproduction.
Or just like, adulthood, or just, romance, fun, excitement. It just seems to be like, people, like, it just, no one's having sex anymore. No one's horny. Or it seems that way, at least according to the data. And, to confront this question, of course, is our old friend Ross Douthat, who...
a guy who loves sex.
I mean, this dude, he loves to pipe. He loves...
Okay, can I just say, I don't like that your new phrase has become to pipe. I thought it's laying pipe. It's not to... Pipe is not the verb.
Don't look at me. I gotta live with her. No, I mean, like, so he's concerned about this, as we all should be. And you know what? Like, he's got a new opinion piece in the New York Times that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt, as far as I'm concerned, that he listens to every single show of ours. Because he is...
Give him a shout out. Hey, Ross.
Ross, what's up, dude? Could we get a shout out maybe in your next column? Because we have been on the tip about there's been no boobs in movies. I mean, just almost as much as our crusade for squibs to bring real
Oh my God.
real violence back to movies. We've been talking forever about how there's no more boobage in movies.
It's all there's no more visceral anything. It's totally deracinated. It's smoothed out.
Well, to the extent that there's still
middle
violence,
register.
it's all CGI, and there's almost no sex. Or the sex that they do show is a very like clinical. It's all in like kind of pre-approved modalities. It's not, like the sex of the sex that you grew up on, pausing and rewinding the VHS.
But yeah, like. As a sort of like a recurring theme on the show, it's just like these social problems it's not having sex is a recurring theme on the show. Is the way in which like the all these issues get filtered into like a cultural war lens, and like this one becomes like are men trash or not, and when really what we're talking about here is like that the economy was destroyed in 2008. And like that to me would be like the knock-on effect about are men or like a decline in marriage or reproduction, is that just like any sort of path to economic stability or adulthood
is connected to material issues about like poverty and prosperity, like wealth and who's allowed to have it.
Well, now the economy is fucked again. So I think we're going to see those exact same hallmarks of, basically our young men reaching these milestones of, sexual maturity and adulthood. I think we're also going to see those increasingly just kind of fall by the wayside because no one has economic.
There's less marriageable men because there's less like jobs.
Well,
and,
yeah.
like,
I
lives
mean,
out
they're
there.
not.
People have fewer prospects, men
they're,
and
like,
women.
Well, they're not even like getting started.
Yes.
Because it's like you won't go to college or you like do remote learning. You'll be sort of like half in, half out, still living at your parents' house. You maybe like don't get a group of friends as easily as you did maybe like 20 years ago or so. Just like the situations that you get in where you do have sex as a young man or a young woman just aren't as common now, even before COVID. I mean, I do think this is like a very interesting topic because, I mean, as always, there was a mass shooting today and there was, of course, one, last week. And every time this happens, there's this like a sort of thing that I basically do understand where it's like people take like the last media thing they remember or that they have a resentment over and they're like, oh, see, well, what about this, that thing that vaguely connects to the mass murder that just happened, which like I think is, at best stupid and at worst like can just be like totally cynical and monstrous, just basically like blaming some other idiot in media for just mass murder. But I feel like the reasons we have these, I mean, they're not simple, but I feel like they're pretty identifiable. And one is that, we live in a imperial nation that has repeatedly shown complete disregard for human life, for the human life, as long as they're something other than you, in whatever way it's constructed, that you can kill literally millions of them, and it's basically fine if your intention was to make the world better. That it's, that even it could just be a mistake. Like Iraq, it's just a mistake. We're just running into a bad time in Afghanistan. Even if you're against the war, it will be framed that way. And it makes human life very forgivable to lose. Just like, the tens of thousands that die of completely preventable ways because of our healthcare system, because of how we see work, everything. And then you have increasing male isolation and alienation. Like huge chunks of like kids just like don't like forget having sex. They just like flat out don't have friends.
Yeah.
And to combine that with the third piece, which is like very uniquely American, a very like toxic individualism. So if you're like, there's nowhere for you to go. You're already sort of pre-programmed to like not see some sort of like valor and heroism in killing scores of people. And if you're wrong, you had the best of intentions. And then combine that with like, the toxic individualism where it's like, well, you're going to be a fucking loser in this life, but you will be your own media brand after you kill all these people and die. And you will become immortal. It's like, fucking course these happen. The problem is like, there's no simple way to fix it. I mean, I honestly do think you'd see a lot less if there were a better way for like young men to have like friendships or like do anything or like even have sex. That of course like isn't a cure all, but I think you'd see like less of it. But as for the rest of it, I mean, it's probably the king of easier said than done.
I also really do think we're going to like be paying for the long-term social effects of COVID for a really long time in young people.
Yeah.
Not only is it like economically stunted an entire generation, but I think it's socially stunted them. So I think we're going to see kind of like a failure to launch generation because of this lost year. Like this is not anywhere near as intense as losing your job and becoming homeless. But I just think about like my little brother is a freshman in college now, and he basically missed out on his senior year of high school, which again, it's not like life or death, but it's like one of those kind of milestone
These
things.
benchmarks that everyone sort of
missed out on like
clings to.
partying that summer, and like they had a weird digital graduation, and now he went to the big state school freshman year, but didn't live in the dorms because of COVID, and you can't really party. there aren't any big lecture halls. You know, it's just like his entire first year and part of, you know, his last year of high school has now been characterized by this kind of weird stuntedness, and now we're all about to be like foisted back into some sense of normalcy. And I just think, like, you know, at these tender moments where you know, young men in particular are kind of like their brains are wiring for the rest of their lives in terms of, can you make like the right social connections to other people and like build communities. I think like there's going to be a chip missing that, you know, it's going to take us a long time to realize or to even like help people find a path back to addressing it.
Yeah, and there's no like actual solution to that I could think that they would make.
Right.
I don't even know what it would look like.
Well, I mean, just to get back to Ross for a second, I mean, like what he's identifying here, and we know. Look, the thing is, we know Ross is a fan of movies. I mean, we know he had a poster of
He loves the
He
film.
loves film. We know he had a poster of Gladiator in his college dorm room. So like he loves classic movies, and what Ross is identifying is a kind of something that, you know, we've noticed too. I mean, he's coming at it from a different angle, obviously, but what he's talking about is like this sort of desexualization of popular culture, like the unerotic American is what he's going for here. But like, you know, we've talked about it before, like that sex in popular culture, at least as far as movies go, I mean, sex has sort of been like shunted aside to like sort of streaming or premium cable television. But like movies themselves is like he does quote from that I thought quite good R.S. Benedict essay about just why there's no more sex in movies, and like they make the point about that like no one has like male bodies and like female, like the form or whatever. No one has ever looked like hotter or more chiseled in like these superhero movies, but no one's having sex, like no one's fucking in movies.
Yeah, they're all sexless.
It's all
because
very
that's
like
how you keep it super marketable and family friendly.
It's just that we have it's like in movies especially, it's this very like neutered cultural terrain right now.
It's like a sexuality without an endpoint.
And it's because like I think it's sort of like nobody really knows how to deal with sexuality in art anymore because it is so dangerous, and it's just like it's so fraught about like how you depict it, or like, you know, who gets to depict it or whatever. And like I think the interesting thing here though is that Ross, as a culture warrior himself, is, you know, like he is not movie mindset. He is cast out of movie mindset because he makes the same mistake that a lot of other people, like, you know, on the left or liberal side do, which is that he wants movies to make people better. He wants movies to like be the sort of like programming that will lead to a resurgence in marriage, having children younger, buying homes, and voting Republican. He's like, if only we could bring back, you know, Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, or Cary Grant or whatever, or just like the romantic screwball comedy of yesteryear, like that'll give. But like, you know, he's willing to accede that there can be like, you know, gross out boner comedies as well. Like he talks about like Ross just wants tits back in movies, and he's willing to like sacrifice like the raunchy sort of like untoward, ruder
because
sort
at
of
least
boner
maybe
stuff.
it would get people fucking again.
Yeah, exactly. Like in exchange for I don't know, juicing the birth rate or something. But like again, like he's correctly identified something that movie mindset is concerned with, but he is not of the body. He is in perdition. He has in movie Gehenna because he has fundamentally the same problem, in which that he wants movies to uphold his political point of view. Like that is what he views as the point of movies. And to the extent that no one's fucking in movies anymore, that's a problem, because like he wants, you know, people to get married younger and to have families younger.
Well, but if you think about it, all these sexless movies are perfect for this moment, right? Like now no one knows how to date, no one's fucking, and so it makes perfect sense that like when you see, you know, you watch the Snyder Cut or something, and who do we look at? We look at Superman. Like we were watching it last night, and you guys are going to talk about it, not with women on the podcast, but like there's no sex, there's no romance, like there's nothing, like it really is like a kind of like a chicken or egg thing about, is our culture reflecting the sexlessness of these movies, or are these movies perfectly reflecting the sexlessness of our culture?
Well, it certainly didn't always. But this also wasn't the case, because I think of like the first big superhero movie that I can think of, the Tim Burton Batmans. Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne, Batman in those movies is so horny. Like those movies are
Mega
only
horny.
about fucking. Like they are like
Yeah.
it is very clear in the Tim Burton Batmans that he is only fighting crime because he wants to fuck women in a cave wearing a mask.
But you know what I mean? Like watching the Snyder Cut last night, it was like there are hot people in it, but they're put in no context that could be read as sexual or containing any like sexual situation, sexual tension, right? Like it calls attention to the fact that it's like negative space for sexuality.
I just think it's funny though, because like Ross has been a culture war scold like as long as we've been following him, and I think it's funny that he's willing to just like yeah, bring back the boners and blowjobs in movies. It's just like, what does the Catholic Church say about this, Rod? Really? Oh, no, Ross.
Yeah, the Legion of Decency had a pretty strong take that the culture should be protected from those sort of influences.
Well, I mean, it's weird that the Snyder Cut is sexless because Snyder is like he's notorious for one of the funniest sex scenes of all time.
Oh, hell
But one of
yes.
the last ones I can remember.
That's true. Nudity and everything. Slow motion humping with boobs.
Yeah. In Watchmen.
Yep. Hallelujah.
Yeah. Which is like the sex scene you would make if you've never had sex.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like I haven't finished it, so maybe like I'm still waiting for the Joker to appear. So maybe when he comes on, it's just going to be a 20-minute long unsimulated sex scene.
Ropes.
Well, yeah. Well, the sexuality of Marvel movies is interesting to me because there is like male female attraction, but it's like it's like there's a decency code. Like it's so weird. Like all they can do is like kiss each like just like a quick kiss and mostly like do soy bands with.
Yeah, it's like a new like Hollywood code era.
Yeah,
and it's all about
it's
keeping
very,
things marketable.
Yeah, it's very like disconcerting, but I think like it does just reflect like a culture where people are like, yeah, having kids less. I mean, like all that like stupid shit in conservative media about like hookup culture and shit. I mean, people are like have been having less sex for a while, and I think it's attributable entirely to sort of societal breakdown and economic reasons.
I mean, yeah, like I don't think you need to like necessarily like think there's like there should always be like a 1-to-1 ratio between sex having and child reproduction. But like, I mean, I think like this is part and parcel of just like a general feeling of like a loss of a belief in the future, like either of ourselves, like our own personal lives, but like our country, our species as a whole. Like, I mean, and now the new big thing on the right is that they're fucking like like Tucker Carlson is talking a lot about dropping sperm counts. Like this is a big panic now. And like for all I know, it's probably true because of all the fucking chemicals and like plastics that we put into the fucking, like,
true.
environment for as long as we've been doing it.
Just we're on pace for 0 sperm count by 2045.
But you're totally right though. Like, sex does not equal reproduction, but there is something life-giving about sex. And so to that end, not having sex conveys like a deep-seated pessimism about the future.
Yeah, you can't get too attached to any of this shit. You don't know how long it's going to be around.
Right.
And I mean, I was saying like childbirth and stuff, but like even just like people having sex is down and has been down for a while now, and that's like, I mean, maybe because like. Yeah, just casual sex where like two people meet and think each other are cool or attractive, or maybe the woman hates the man
and wants to tweet about it later.
He recently bought a couch, but she hates him in a way that's sexual. Has to have sex with him. See his new couch that he bought.
This is a
it's only
Felix
$600. He
sex
thought couches cost $7,000.
You thought they cost like $20,000.
Yeah, the couch costs $180,000, and you pay it.
Fucking Louise Linton over here.
100-year installments. But no, yeah, that's like it's like a beautiful mutual thing that isn't really like in and of itself monetized or monetizable, or I mean, it just like at its best, and people still do this. The few Americans who are still having sex have like a beautiful mutual social event
on a new
don't
couch.
have that anymore.
I just think it's like it's just like everything else. It's like we look at these like seemingly intractable social problems, and we find ways to talk about them in which it is like all the responsibility of
the individual for not being good enough or not doing X, Y, or Z. And like, hookups, sex, fucking love, intimacy, family, like all these things are not synonyms for one another, but it is hard to have it is rare to have like a sort of fulfilling life that you feel good about without some or some combination of those things. And to the extent to which those possibilities are being removed from both men and women, it is we're just talking about the impoverishment of our society and our future that is the direct result of material conditions and opportunities and just money and time that's being taken away from us.
Maybe it's harder for people to have sex even when they are out in the world and are in situations where people in the past would more typically have casual sex, because maybe it's just impossible to think beyond oneself now.
Right.
Yeah, imagining the interiority of another person, at enough of a vividness to even imagine engaging with them and relating to them, because you can't relate to anybody outside of yourself. You can't conceive of it.
That's why do guys in high school, why, if I could think of a singular reason, there are always a million reasons, but a singular reason why they have trouble with girls. And I think the singular, the biggest one is probably that they think girls are a different species who don't want to have sex, and you have to a combination of fool and impress them or something. You have to show that you don't care about them.
You have to come up with the right magical combination of words to trick a woman.
Yeah, no, tricking them.
Yeah.
And
or unlock something in her.
Right. But as you get older, you're oh, women are horny too. Women are also they seek the same sort of validation.
Desire. They want the feeling of being desired.
Desire and validation that I seek. And that's not a bad thing. Can be just casual sex can be beautiful in that sense that it's two people kind of validating each other's desires, and they go their separate ways or whatever. But I think everyone is kind of permanently 14 years old now, where it's everyone else in the world is an alien creature who couldn't possibly have similar desires or interests.
We're also atomized.
Anything that they have. Yeah.
And we've also totally lost any semblance. I know that this is new and newer in the last year, but we don't have any public spaces or, a shared, in the absence of shared stories or, a meaningful shared culture outside of Marvel movies. Now we don't even have shared neighborhood bars with which, in which you could run into someone that maybe you'll meet and have a connection with.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah. It's sad times in America.
Yeah.
I remember I remember when I was in studying abroad
or two.
Yeah. No, absolutely. There are no women on this trip. Get them out of here.
Where did you study abroad, Felix?
In Spain. And there was this kid in my class, because it was an international class type thing. It was actually the CIA.
Everyone listening to this is thinking that.
Yeah, but no, he was from Denmark. And I remember he was talking to another American guy who is a nice kind of nerdy American guy, and he was explaining to him how in Denmark you can go to a bar and just casually meet a woman, and if you like each other you'll have sex. It's crazy. That's a crazy thing, but it kind of is for a lot of Americans now. A lot of Americans probably that is very hard for them to imagine.
Yeah, no. And I guess just to wrap things up here, while not falling into the trap that is verboten in movie mindset, the belief that movies can make the world a better place or make this nation's politics better in any meaningful sense. I do think though, I appreciate though that it seems that there is an opening for some common ground on the left and right to both bring back squibs and actual violence in movies. Not actual violence, but
I don't know. Let's do it.
No, bring back snuff movies.
Yeah, snuff films. Let's
Bring
do
back practical effects.
We're talking about bodily fluids, like practical effects, like squibs.
We want to see cum shots. We want to see squibs.
Gratuitous nudity. And I don't mean this from like a misogynist bro perspective. Let's get some penises in movies too.
Yeah, let's
Absolutely.
go see some
Let's get
full
some
frontal.
hands.
Oh yeah,
on.
absolutely. We filming penises in movies again.
I want to see Tom Hardy's
we're on
dick.
Zoom right
I'm
now,
very
and I'm
curious about
filming
what it looks like.
penises.
Women have been coasting off the fumes of that movie where Liam Neeson's flopper is just fucking dangling around. That's like the only thing they got.
Oh
for
God,
it.
I remember
Harvey
Shane
Keitel in Bad
when,
Lieutenant. Fassbender is his dick. You could see him like his dick from while he was peeing from behind. So that's how you know he's got.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can count you can count the instances of male full frontal nudity in American
Kevin
movies.
Bacon in Wild Things. Harvey Keitel in Bad Lieutenant. And then, like every other example is some European movie, but like that's a different genre. You can't judge that.
Like if you want to see, like, first of all, they used a prosthetic dick in Antichrist for Willem Dafoe because
it wasn't a prosthetic dick. It was a stunt dick. It was a real penis from a porn performer who was actually less well endowed than Willem Dafoe is apparently.
Yeah, no,
Let's
because
see it.
his was distractingly big, and also like, unless you're a really fucked up woman, which there are a lot of. That's a hard scene to jack off to because he just like gets his dick caved in by a fucking log during that scene. I don't know. Some women might like that. I don't know.
Don't yuck my yum.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it's just we need like the blood of life, the blood and the fluid of life. I think should be filmed more often, and not in a pornographic context, like in the context of a movie. We want to be excited. We want to see life. We want to learn life.
Life is about sex and death.
Yeah, I mean, like movies are about sex and death. Like movies are like how we deal with our anxiety about those things, or it's what we want to be excited by is sex and violence.
Yeah, I mean, to sort of like what you said about how movies can't change the world. I mean, I have the same view of all media. Like
except
I don't,
blogs. Blogs can.
as much blogs can, but like as much fun as I have like doing the show, and as proud as I am of all the work we've done. Yeah, I don't think it's changed the world really in any way, but I do think the best thing you can do as media, the thing that can allow you to go to sleep at night sort of happy with what you're doing with your life, is that they give people a reprieve, or they give even better people something to look forward to.
I think the best,
and if movies had some type of visceral quality again, I don't know. It feels like everyone is watching these movies, but they're not enjoying them as much as they portray.
I think
that's the feeling I get.
Leaving like media or journalism and like comedy aside, and just speaking specifically about like art and movies in particular, like I don't think they can change the world or make it a better place. But I think at their best, and I'm talking even not just art films, I'm talking even just like cheap, crass entertainment. Like at their best, I think that they crack open something in our minds. They're just like the movie magic does something where it allows us to have a glimpse of like a better, like a different way of being, a different reality, like something different inside ourselves that is maybe there, that we can access it, maybe just a tiny bit of it. It creates a possibility inside of us that wasn't there before, and like that possibility is, like what is this life for? Like why are we here? What makes it worth living? And the answer is sex and death. One of those things is coming inevitably. The former, less and less so, which hastens the latter.
And certainly not to anyone on this call. Just kidding.
Fear the old blood.
Okay, that is the last word on that. Fear the old blood. But let's have some horniness in movies again. Can we?
Yeah, let's bring it back.
Let's just bring it back.
Chapo says get out there and knock some boots.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, ladies, think of a member of the opposite sex. Picture them in your mind, the kind you would like to mash their thing against your worm, or vice versa. Go up to them and just go, capitalist realism, Mark Fisher, and then fuck each other. Let's do it. Let's go. COVID's over. COVID's fake. Let's go. Go out there. Come on. Let's go.
COVID is not over and fake. Please do not cancel our fucking Patreon.
All right. Well,
Google Majestic 12.
I would I'd like to close out the show by thanking our guest and my love, Catherine Krieger.
Oh, thank you.
So we're talking about love and sex, so I'm feeling.
Thank you.
Thinking of you, baby.
Oh.
Oh, yuck! Why don't you guys go in a tree?
We just might.
We just might.